And we're back.
Thank you very much for joining us, everybody. This is part 2, episode 151 of Salt of the Streets. My name is Donovan.
I'm Colin.
We are happy to have you. Of course, you can find all of our information at our website, saltofthestreets.com, including our YouTube, where you're watching us now, and our Patreon, patreon.com/saltofthestreets. Go there, subscribe, help us make more better content just like this. We just put out an article yesterday, a newsletter yesterday. Woo! Go and check those out. This segment is executively produced by Zeke, and it is brought to you by Location Skate Shop. So,
Do it.
with that, okay, so I want to talk about one thing before we talk about the standard topics.
Okay.
It is a local stories thing. Also, we got this beer from Colin's brother. It's from Montana. Has an otter on it.
It's called Otter Water
It's great.
Session Pale Ale.
I haven't tried it yet, actually. But the can is
Phillipsburg Brewing.
Well.
So, cheers.
great. Yeah, let's talk about this beer first.
Yeah, let's judge it.
Super chill. It's
Yeah,
like
real chill. I like that. What percentage is it? They
Yeah,
call it
this
a
one's-
session, so
yeah,
it's
like
got to be
5 or something like that.
4.5.
Yeah.
I dig it.
That's why.
It's a beer you can drink all
all
day,
day.
out on the
Yeah.
golf course.
Yeah, the can is not bad either. The bottle
Yeah.
thing is weird. I don't hate it. Like the screw top.
It's interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued. But we'll be getting into Haybag, Hefeweizen, and Razoo Raspberry Wheat Ale.
All right.
So we're going wheaty today.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about bank robbing. There was
In Bremerton?
Yeah, last
Yeah.
week there was a dude that robbed 2 banks, right? So he robbed one bank, changed his clothes, went and robbed the other bank. I don't remember reading how much supposedly he got out, right? Jordan brought it out to me, and I was like, honestly, like, who fucking cares? And then I said, actually, I think the first thing I said is, the average take from a bank robbery is like $2,000. Like it's very small. It's not very much money because most people go in by themselves. They shut the safe or the
Yeah,
what
you're
was
not
it?
getting into the
vault
safe
immediately. Yeah. So you get whatever is in the drawers, which is not that much, because you get to like a certain point in your drawer and you got to take it to the vault. They don't let you just keep stacking all
People
day.
have been robbing banks for a very long time. They got a system pretty down
Right.
packed at
It
this
just
point.
doesn't work that way.
Yeah, you're not walking out with 200 G's or
Right.
20 G's. You're not filling up suitcases and shit.
So then we started talking about robbing banks, right? Not like
As
we
one
should
does.
rob a bank, but like
The concept.
the concept of robbing banks and kind of the modern ethics of robbing banks, And so I think Jordan was the one that posed to me, like, is it really like that wrong? To
rob
be
a bank.
robbing a bank in modern times. So I started talking. I'm like, well, all money, a vast majority of banks are FDIC insured. So if you're hitting a bank, the likelihood is the money is insured up to whatever 150 grand, whatever it is,
Yeah.
So the whatever money you're taking, you're only taking from this institution. It's not coming out of anybody's pockets other than whatever bank you've just robbed it from. And in the end, it's really coming from the government because they're going to be reimbursed for the money that you took.
Yes, the whole FDIC thing it exists for reasons.
It's the government that's going to be paying out this money. So it's really who you've stolen money from. And so I think that the thing that we've almost been brainwashed to keep thinking this is a bad thing, because so long as you're not doing harm to other people in the process, that you're not like shooting somebody, hitting anybody, doing anything like that, right? You're going in, you're threatening somebody, which is not a good thing. You should be doing that, but
That's bad news
you,
bears.
you do that in effect to get this money, you leave, like that's done,
Okay.
right?
What's the problem there?
Is this still a moral question? Is it still a bad thing to be doing? Is it just a mentality we're operating under as a society still that this is a bad thing to be doing? Like, what's the line on robbing banks?
It's still theft of property that does not belong to you, so it is inherently immoral and wrong. We have laws against it for reasons because, even though by the end of the day the government and the Federal Reserve has fucked up the money supply and our entire relationship with money, it's essentially going to be like a drop in the bucket as far as everyone's concerned. Our taxes aren't going to go up for it, but you're going to be doing some kind of infinitesimal decimal. You're stealing that money that the government is then going to have to put in, to the FDIC or whatever it is, so people
Well,
get
they
their
set
money
money
back.
aside for it every year. It's written into the budget. There's X
that's
amount of
right.
money for the FDIC to give out every year because of robberies.
And that's robberies and fraud is essentially like the two biggest things for it. But yeah, robbery has gone way, way down for a number of reasons. But no, at the end of the day, regardless of the institutional backing and possibly the net worthlessness of the cash you're stealing, don't hurt people, don't take their stuff. You're still taking people's stuff. Whether or not a bank as an institution is a moral institution, at the end of the day, you're still stealing from people, still stealing from somebody, and that is going to be inherently wrong. And if you don't, as a society, decide that stealing money from a bank is wrong, then you literally just get rid of currency. Done. It's game over at that point. If you're going to allow society to have little to no backlash against a thief like that, that's going to steal money from people, I mean, the entire fabric of society kind of fades away, because then everybody just gets to steal money from everybody, and money is entirely worthless. On an institutional level, we have arguments about whether money actually exists or not, but we still use it as our currency, so it still has inherent value to most people, and so you're still stealing. It's still theft. It's still inherently wrong. I think that even from a libertarian standpoint, you can pretty easily make the argument that bank robbery is wrong. You're not, because even though technically the vast majority of it is controlled by the federal, it comes from the Federal Reserve and then it's insured by the federal government, the money still belongs to somebody at the end of the day, and morally that's wrong. Don't take people's stuff. Money in the bank is technically supposed to be the people who deposit their money. That's their money. That's or even if you get past that level, you give it over to the institution and it's not your money anymore. They just owe you money in return. Then you're stealing money from the institution of the bank. So, yeah, no, I am, out of all the hot takes that I am not pro bank robbery. We'll do that. Not to mention, you have to infringe on a bunch of other people's rights to get to that point of stealing that money anyways. You're still going to threaten people with harm. You're still going to trespass on somebody's property. The minute you walk in there with the intent to steal, that would be trespass at that point. So you're walking all over people's rights to steal money from what may or may not be a government institution, but still, inherently wrong. I am anti-bank robbery. One of the few things I'm anti these days.
Okay.
I get where your mind comes from, though. Because, at the end of the day, all they're going to do is just money printer go burr, or it's just going to fade away into the debt in some infinitesimally small decimal that's not really going to affect anybody, because they're not going to walk out with a gang load of cash.
Right.
But still, can't be enforcing that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Can't be enabling that kind of
And
behavior.
I'm not saying we should promote it, right? I'm definitely not saying we should promote it. That's it. I'm just not saying we should promote it.
There you go.
You got me thinking. I'm thinking.
Yeah.
I don't have a good argument to counter you, so I don't.
So I have to try to go back to base values.
I'm just thinking.
theft is wrong.
Well, I'm trying to. I'm more turning within myself. Like, okay, what's going on inside of you that you think this is okay? You know what I'm saying? Like,
To take money?
no, not just taking the money.
Kind of a Robin Hood thing,
I
maybe?
don't. No.
I mean, you're
If I
robbing
take
from the
it,
rich,
it's mine.
baby. If they use a non-insured bank, you're bad.
Certainly.
That's right,
certainly.
Ma. Oh, happy birthday, Ma. I know your birthday's
Happy
tomorrow,
birthday.
but you're here in the live chat, so I'm going to give you a happy birthday right now. I love you very much. Enjoy your beers.
I've just never had that much beef with it.
Robbing banks?
Yeah.
Yeah, unless you kill somebody in the
it's
process,
not
like
a
I don't
thing
really.
that I've
Thanks for good movies.
Yeah, it's just not a criminal offense that I've ever heard about him. Like those bastards. Like it's not a thing that upsets me, So that's why I'm thinking about it. Usually things that are
You go in and steal racks of clothing from a store or something like that. That feels almost worse than just taking random cash that is essentially worthless at the end of the day. I mean, to the institution you're taking from, they're not really
and I
gonna,
guess it's
not really
not
affect
that
them.
much different. Like if you're stealing clothes from a Walmart, it's not that much different. It's not different than taking money from a bank. It's either way, it's the property of that institution at the time that you're doing
Yeah,
it.
and you're essentially, by stealing the product, you're stealing their money.
Right. So why do I? Yep. Okay.
You just have a really institutionalized or distilled hatred towards, the entire economic model that we deal with today, because they've devalued our currency so much, it becomes almost like, I don't care if you steal it.
I do have issue with it. Yes. So yeah, I wonder. Yeah, you got me thinking. I'm interested now.
Well, fuck around with that for a while and see where you land. It's always going to be fun.
I wonder what my deal is with that. That's interesting.
Because you've been thinking about bank robberies for a minute.
For a long time.
Because of stories and things like that. So, it makes sense that you're like, well, is it really so wrong that this happened? Somebody goes in there and starts shooting it up heat style. Very different. Holding people hostage, keeping them under duress, threatening people.
Shouldn't be hurting people.
Don't hurt people. Don't take their stuff, bro.
Shouldn't be hurting people.
That's where I land. Seems a pretty safe place to hang out.
All right, I'm gonna think about that more.
Please do.
So part 2, we're talking about the Hunter Biden stuff, and then we're talking about some Supreme Court decisions. Right? So,
and if we have time, we'll get into some institution conversations.
yeah, I kind of want to. I don't have anything written, so I kind of want to just put it out front because it's pretty fucking apparent. I don't have a beautiful paragraph like I usually do for the life and liberty thing, or for freedom and liberty, because this, I think, is like pretty obvious when we see cases like this, when people in positions of power are given deals through the judicial system that the average person would never receive, right? We've talked specifically about gun charges on this show a ton of times because we talk about guns so frequently. We've talked about the different things the ATF is doing for people who are potentially in violation of a law that hasn't been crafted yet. They're going to people's houses, they're taking people's property. Like, this is the thing that they're doing. We now have somebody who's the president's son who has verifiably violated a federal law and is going to receive no jail time at all for a thing that if I did, I would most definitely receive jail time, probably see 8 years of it if I could keep my nose clean while I was in there.
There'd be a max or a minimum sentence involved, I'm sure.
I don't even want to go in like I said, I don't have anything beautiful because it's obvious and it's dark, and this thing has been happening for a long time, and this is just the latest example of this. Like, there are people talking about stuff that I didn't look into it, so I don't want to go too deep into it, but we could look up examples for days. Just specifically around presidents and their family who've received sweetheart deals, but like Jared Kushner was into stuff when Donald Trump was in office, and
it goes down to the representatives and the senators.
It's not unique,
or the bureaucracy.
Yeah, it's not unique to party or individual. This is power.
This is class-based.
What happens when this type of power is able to concentrate itself in such a finite amount of the population. This is how it results itself. They use this power to abuse the system that they claim to represent, they claim to uphold, and they do it while they laugh at you and they put you in jail for the same exact thing. So like I said, I've brought things on here before that put me in questionable positions of federal law. I would most certainly go to prison if that were to happen. I have zero criminal record. I would definitely go to prison if that were to happen.
It's a good thing you lost all those things in a boating accident.
Hunter Biden just verifiably and provably broke federal law and is going to receive zero jail time in regards to gun ownership. So
cheating on his taxes.
This is what they think of you, right? This is precisely how they perceive you, that they're better than you. The people around them are better than you. They deserve better than you. They don't need to follow the same rules as you. This is precisely how they think. The amount of people of any form of moral value that are serving in our government, state and federal, is very, very small. It's a finite. It's a finite amount of people who you could respect at any turn. It's we'll talk a little bit more about it during the Supreme Court, but it's another event in a series that underlines the illegitimacy of the federal government and the power that it claims to hold over us. And there isn't some type of fix-all for this type of thing. The only thing that I can advocate to free yourself from this type of horrific treatment is non-compliance with this type of unjustifiable law. That's the only thing that I can advocate. And I'm not trying to tell you to break the law. I'm not trying to break any YouTube rules or anything like that. But when you're in the face of something that is unjust, it's your. There's a whole quote that goes, I don't remember. It's your duty to not follow it. It becomes duty. So I am not trying to be cliche or anything like that. We are not lying to you because we've showed you examples of us doing this on the show. If there is a law that is in place that is unjust, don't follow it. That's the only way around this. The system, in my opinion, is too far gone for hope of reformation to be plausible that will turn in our favor. So that's what I can advocate. I'm not telling you not to pay your taxes,
because they'll throw you in a fucking cage.
but I would.
It's tough to find the exact right way to, practice civil disobedience towards the exact thing that you're upset about.
Yeah.
Mostly because there are so many convoluted laws and the multi-tiered justice system. A lot of people like to say that there's a two-tier justice system, one for us, one for them, but it goes farther than that because, yes, a lot of it's class-based and power-based, which is the same thing as class, but at the end of the day, Hunter Biden's going to get a different treatment than, say, some mayor of a big city that gets caught smoking a bunch of crack and hanging out with male prostitutes or something like that. Those guys tend to get the book thrown at them and thrown into a small cage, never to be seen from again, or they get a slap on the wrist and then just disappear from public life. But this is a perfect example of a multi-tiered justice system, law enforcement system that just proves to you, the individual, that you do not matter to them. They do not care about you. And the only thing they really care about is protecting their own by exploiting the institution that they hold power over. That's what I would say to that. It's very frustrating because we see it all the time. This is, I think, a very special example because the depth of depravity and illegality around this particular person of Hunter Biden has been so visible to everybody that it makes the everyday person feel really, really wronged, aggrieved, offended by the existence of this multi-tier justice system, because you know for a fact that if you were doing a bunch of crack, hanging out with underage, women of the evening, and posting it or putting it on your computer for there to be evidence of, and then all of a sudden you lie on a federal gun form and then throw the gun in a fucking dumpster behind a school or grocery store or whatever the fuck it was.
For your brother's
You'd be
wife
going
to
to jail.
find.
Yes. Your dead brother's wife who you were banging behind everyone's back. You're going to jail and not coming out. That's just the way that would go for 20 plus years. I guarantee it. And then add on the fact that you have all these crazy, lied on your taxes situations and all this stuff, which you're, again, getting a slap on the wrist for because you found a rich buddy to pay the IRS what you owe them. And then you're just, it's fine. It's an egregious display of what we all know is systemically wrong in this country. And you should be pissed off about it. And it should make you want to push back in whatever way you can. And this particular one's really complicated because how do you push back against a multi-tier justice system that would just as happily throw you in jail and throw away the key? It's a tough gig. But, he obviously has no issues. He doesn't feel bad about any of it. He's there he got invited to the fucking big state dinner and stuff that night.
Right.
And right after he was, charged with all these things and got the sweetheart deal of his life. And now he's out there hobnobbing with all the people that essentially give him the power to do that. It's pretty disgusting. Not a huge fan myself. But hey, if you really want to know what this whole story's about, you can watch either The View has a great clip on it.
Yeah.
Where they say this is really just a story about a father's love.
Or
Or
you
just
have that, right?
oh no, but I can pull it up real quick. I'm sure it's really easy to
gotta
find.
watch it at some point.
Or just check out today's thumbnail and get really, really skeeved out by what's
horrifically
happening on there.
uncomfortable. Yeah. So we'll talk about some of the details behind that. I think you guys probably have a decent idea because it's actually received coverage from all media outlets, because I think that it's just finally reached the point that you're not able to ignore it. You know, when the federal Justice Department, like when the Department of Justice is involved, you can't really not cover it. You have to address it. You know.
Of course, the first clip that comes up comes from Breaking Points. But I'm pretty sure they do show the clip in its entirety.
So
I'll find it real quick so we can watch it.
I don't have the exact date, but at some point in the last 2 weeks, Hunter Biden was officially charged by the Department of Justice with 2 tax crimes and then 1 federal gun charge.
Yeah.
And
the tax crimes are really funny because it all stems from the money he made from Burisma, which is really hilarious.
So let me see. I have a couple articles here, so I'll pick. Let's see.
I'm excited about it. Well, while you're pulling those articles, let's go ahead and just play The View doing what they do best.
Known Joe Biden since he was a senator for about 20-some years. I can't tell you how much his life has been marked by losing not 1 child, but 2 children. Yeah. And once you've lost a child, I think you are absolutely determined. It's even more urgent. It's even a bigger issue that you will not lose another one. Yeah. The Hunter.
Also, I get that concept.
Yeah.
I get the concept for sure. For sure.
Biden story, the scandal, the this, the that, it's also the story of a father's love.
That's right.
And Joe Biden has never and will never give up on his son Hunter, and will never treat him lesser than.
Anna Navarro's having a hard time getting through it.
First, take it or leave it. That's who he is. That is part of his heart. There was 380 people at this dinner. It's not like Hunter was sitting at Merrick Garland's lap. It was a bunch of people.
The real point of conflict there is that the Attorney General, Merrick Garland, was at this state dinner where Hunter was just there. And, I mean, technically there's nothing wrong with that. That's fine. You know, he's technically, according to the way the justice system works, got what he's getting.
Right.
Merrick Garland has literally, he's like, I got really nothing to do with this. The system works. I just run the system. There you go.
And I think part of the reason that Hunter Biden has been able to get out of addiction is because Joe Biden embraced him entirely, the entire time. Yeah. When he was vice president, when he was candidate, when he was out of office, and now as president.
Wow, so it's just...
And every day beforehand, because this has not been a short process for Hunter Biden. This has been most of his adult life was getting into nefarious things that his big daddy had to get him out of.
Well, and just like all of the other times that someone has committed a heinous crime and a news outlet tries to cover it up by talking about what a great person they were and a family man and all this type of stuff, that's great. That's not what we're talking about. Mm-hmm. We're talking about the fact that you have broken multiple laws that if anybody else broke, they would be in prison.
Yeah.
And you found someone else to pay your fucking fines for you, and now you're going to keep doing whatever you're doing, making money, selling art to rich people, and continue to profit. I don't care about how much your dad loves you. Yeah. This doesn't matter to me. That's not what this story is about.
Yes.
This isn't a story of a father's love. It's a story of someone who broke federal law and is now receiving unfair treatment. Unfair... I guess that insinuates that it's negative.
It's you get a pass. You get a pass. You know, you get a quiet little slap on the wrist, and then you get to go about your day. All right, well, you fucked up, and unfortunately, the world caught you. So we have to do something to you. So we'll give you a little slap on the pee-pee, and then you can go about your day. It's not a big, IRS got what they wanted. They don't really give a shit. That's fine. We're not going to make a big federal case out of this thing by throwing Hunter Biden in prison like we would anybody else.
Which again shows you that this isn't about the money, right? This federal entity, the IRS. Well, it doesn't matter. The fact that they're willing to settle for some amount of money shows it's not about this. When they're trying to put people in jail. They're trying to show you they have power, right? It's not about the money that you owe them. They don't care about that. They're willing to write it off. They're willing to spend as much money as they want. It's that they need to show you, if you don't do what we say, we'll fucking put you in jail. That's what the IRS is for. It's not It's not a means of collecting taxes, right? Because if they really want to just collect money, they would simplify everything. They would delete millions and millions of pages of tax code and make it so that you could understand how to file your own taxes and how much you needed to pay.
Yep.
They would make it so that you didn't have to find another person, a whole other corporation or private person do your taxes for you. You would
An
be able to do it
entire
yourself.
industry exists around people filing their taxes in a proper manner.
If they just wanted money from you, they would just collect money from you. They want to control you. This is a means to an end of displaying control. They're showing you, if you do not listen, we will put you in jail unless you belong to this special class. Then we'll collect some money from you when you walk away. Because we have to show people, we have to at least make it look like we care about the money. That's why you have to give us something. We have to settle with you. They don't care about your money. They care about having multiple ways to put you in prison. And this is a way where you haven't really done anything wrong, because all you did was just not let the government steal from you, and they're going to put you in jail anyway.
Yeah. That's a good way to put it, too. It's like, well, we just found a way for you not to get robbed by the federal government.
Straight to jail with you.
Straight to jail. Sorry, bro.
Straight to jail
I got
with you.
around your theft. My bad. My bad.
Yeah.
I
so-
love how you could tell exactly when this article came out that you just sent us because of the stupid fucking Titanic story that's still in there.
It's tragic.
I love it so much. It just really rubs me
Can
wrong.
I quick take on the Titanic? I'm sure that you said something similar. I don't care.
Yes.
You shouldn't be doing this.
That's the whole moral of the story.
Human beings aren't made to be under the water like that. You shouldn't be doing that. I don't agree with this. You shouldn't be in space. You shouldn't be at the bottom of the ocean. We're not supposed to go there. There are things there that don't look right. You shouldn't be doing that there. I don't agree with that. I saw a video of a fish walking on legs. You shouldn't be going to the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah, the tripod fish.
You shouldn't be doing this. I don't agree with it. I don't feel bad for you. It's unfortunate that people are dead. You shouldn't be going to the bottom of the ocean.
I take a different stance, slightly. I'm all for it. Go to town. I like the adventure aspect. I like discovering new planes and all this stuff. But don't come crying to me when you die.
Dude, send a robot.
Shit's dangerous,
You
bro.
don't need to be. We sent a robot to Mars for a reason.
Or take the,
People aren't supposed to go there.
the really fucked up thing about this whole thing, right, is that people have been doing massively deep water dives, manned deep water dives in hardcore submersibles for decades at this point. We've got that shit pretty on lock,
We
right?
have the technology.
We do. And if you were to put up the money to get, say, James Cameron's fucking submersible, I don't know, maybe buy it secondhand used, still works great, still passes all the certifications and the safety checks that says you're not going to fucking die when you go down here on this. You may not be able to bring 5 people. Maybe you can only have a pilot and a single passenger. But you know for a fact that when you go down to go see the Titanic, it's not going to fucking implode on you with over 60,000 PSI of pressure. That might be the way to do it. Go to town. Elon Musk is launching fucking rockets up into space left and right. He's delivering people to the space station. Tried and true methods that we know are all dangerous, but we've done the best to mitigate all the danger. And if you want to sign up for that dangerous thing, go do it. But if you're going to do it in an unproven, essentially like kind of ad hoc thrown together manner, don't ask me to feel bad for you when you fucking die. That's all. I like all this cool shit. That's nice. I'm not going to go do it. That seems like a dumb thing to me. I will watch the videos of all the cool footage that you bring back. How about that? But hey, if you want the experience, you sign on the dotted line that says, I will probably die if I do this. I just don't care. I do not care about the loss. My bad, dude. My bad. I don't care if they're billionaires or the poorest people in the world. If you sign up for something that you know is inherently massively dangerous, don't ask me to feel bad for you when you don't come back. That's it. You know, all the first people that are going to go to Mars, good luck, bro. You probably ain't going to make it. Most of you probably will not make it, if not all of you.
You shouldn't be doing that.
You know, that's fine. So there we go. That's my stance on it. So key takeaways from Hunter Biden's guilty plea deal with federal tax and gun charges.
Yeah, this is a quick one from CBS. Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss announced on Tuesday that a plea agreement had been reached with President Joe Biden's son, Hunter, potentially avoiding incarceration for a trial. A federal judge must first approve the deal. Hunter Biden was charged with 2 misdemeanor tax offenses and a felony firearms charge. The gun possession was for him being addicted to drugs when he was in possession of the firearm, which is federally illegal. If you've never bought a gun before, you have to, one of the questions you have to answer is whether or not you are knowingly addicted to marijuana or other type of addictive drugs. The tax offense is Hunter Biden is entering a guilty plea to 2 misdemeanor tax charges relating to his willful failure to pay taxes for 2017 and 2018. A court filing on Tuesday indicates that he had more than $1.5 million in income each year and did not pay tax either year. He has since fully repaid. Someone else paid it back, taxes and fines, including $2 million reportedly paid to the federal government last year with the help of a loan from his personal attorney.
Oh, it was his personal attorney that did it.
Does he face prison time? If Hunter Biden has been convicted of the crimes, he would face a maximum penalty of 12 months in prison on each of the tax charges and a maximum penalty of 10 years in prison with the firearms charge. That is 12 years, just so we're clear. According to a press release from the U.S. Attorney, a source with knowledge of the agreement said Hunter Biden will not be pleading guilty to the gun charge, which will be dismissed if he remains drug-free and doesn't commit additional crimes for 2 years. So he's getting a deferment on a federal gun crime.
Yeah. Out of all the things, I mean, but we'll tack him with the 2 misdemeanors.
Also,
Misdemeanors, they're not even felonies.
yeah. This next segment shows you how horrific and corrupt CBS is. Hunter Biden had a gun. We've known about this for multiple years. Because during the election is when the laptop dropped. That's when we got the majority of this information. So,
And that's the fucked up part too, is that to come up with this gun charge, they had to go through the laptop.
yes.
And then just looked past all the other incriminating evidence on the laptop to include like underage prostitution. But
Yes.
hey, that's fine.
Because the gun thing
We've all seen the shit, man.
was active in, I don't remember I don't think they were in Delaware. I don't remember what state they were in with the gun thing. Was it like a small grocery store? It might have been in Jersey or some shit like that.
Yeah.
But either way, that was already working its way through the system. So that gun shit had already happened.
Yeah.
So it was the reframing with the laptop that verified that he was addicted to drugs at that time. So yes, Weiss said Hunter Biden unlawfully possessed a gun for 11 days from October 12th through October 23rd, despite knowing he was an unlawful user of and addicted to a controlled substance.
There you go. That would be the verbiage in the form.
Yes.
Hang on a second. Colt Cobra 38 Special.
That's the kind of gun that he had.
You know, I want to Google it and see what it looks like.
It's a Colt gun, so it's nice.
Yeah. It's a Cobra.
38
Colt Cobra.
Special.
Oh, it's a fucking snub-nosed revolver.
Yeah, 38 Special is a short 357.
Oh, okay. Look at that. Out of all, okay, bud. That's a fucking, yeah, I'm addicted to crack gun for sure. 100%.
I need a gun today. That's what that is.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So what else was part of the investigation? The investigation into Hunter Biden dates back to at least 2018. For a time, it appeared the investigation had broader scope, ranging across Hunter Biden's many international business dealings. In a 2019 federal subpoena obtained by CBS News sought banking records for Hunter and the president's brother James, as well as 2 business partners. The subpoena demanded they turn over the records for transactions with the Bank of China dating back to 2014 when Joe Biden was vice president. In December 2020, subpoena requested documents as far back as January 2017 regarding Hunter Biden's income, assets, debts, obligations, and financial transactions, and all personal and business expenditures. So, on this point, right, I kind of have like I side with Hunter a little bit, right? I don't like the fact that just by looking into this, right, you can tell this is kind of being pushed by, it looks like somebody's more or less looking into like his dad, right? And then he's so integrated with his dad that these things come up. What do we have to bring to the surface? What don't we want to? But they're subpoenaing personal financial records from somebody who is not in government. You might be able to convince me otherwise if this is justified if somebody's working for the government, but you're not in government, and they're being able to get your income, assets, debts, obligations, and financial transactions for years and years and years ago. Like, that seems, I don't know if I get comfortable with the fucking federal government having that kind of power towards any individual.
Yes.
That seems pretty problematic to me.
So let me steelman for you. This says the subpoena demanded they turn over records for transactions with the Bank of China dating back to 2014, when Joe Biden was president, and then the 2020 subpoena requested documents as far back as 2017. So it may have to do with his ties with the Bank of China, because those date back to 2014. And so if
And is it problematic for an American citizens to do business with a foreign bank?
depending on what the
The thing is, yeah.
listen to me, I'm the government man right now.
I know.
Depending on what the business is,
Fucking nameless,
yes.
faceless gray shirt over here.
Right. If you're doing it to hide funds from the IRS, from the government, if you're doing shady business deals, if you're fucking buying into Chinese companies that you shouldn't be buying into, you know what I'm saying?
What's the difference, say, in doing that directly or offshoring your money in the Cayman Islands and then doing business overseas?
So the difference that I would say with Hunter Biden specifically is they're also drawing connections, like you were saying, between him and Joe Biden. So if he's using these banks in China to use himself as a middleman for money to Joe Biden, then that's a problem.
Yeah. Yeah, I could see that. I could see that.
If you're a middleman for payments from the CCP to Joe Biden for whatever the fucking deal is, or Ukraine to Joe Biden, or whatever the fucking deal is, that's a problem.
It is a problem.
If you're
Because at that point you're really just acting as a middleman for somebody that's in the federal government that
Right.
has that kind of power.
right, to avoid taxes and the optics of corruption that are coming with those payments for whatever the payments are for.
Exactly. Because even by its own nature, I mean, if you as a career senator, former vice president, start going out there and doing a bunch of business with foreign powers, you cannot escape the cloak of conspiracy,
The
or,
influence that
corruption.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't escape that because of just the nature of the life, the way you've lived it, and who you are as a human being.
Right.
There's certain avenues of your freedoms that essentially are curtailed by the choices you've made throughout your life at this point. I can't do this anymore unless I totally ghost everyone in public life at this point and I disappear into the ether to just quietly make all my money.
Especially since he's president now and he was vice president at the time. If he's being paid by China while he's serving our government and hiding it through his son,
Yeah.
there's at the very least a level of suspicion there as to why are you doing that?
Yep.
If there's nothing that's weird about it, then why aren't you just taking these payments? Because
Yeah.
if you're president, I don't think you can just take payments from another government. I don't think it works
No.
that way.
No.
I'm sure there's some form of law that
We talk
says-
shit about Trump doing
Right.
that because of like where he was holding his meetings and shit at his properties
Right.
overseas, and so
And I
he
think
was
it has to
inherently
do
making money.
also with like the gifts that you get overseas. Like you can only get gifts, you can't get money from other governments.
Yeah.
You can just get gifts from. I think.
And even and there's a bunch of you can, but
Bunch
yeah,
of
there's a bunch of rules
rules, right.
about that. AOC, her gifted dress for the Met Gala and all that shit.
Right. I've heard like Derek when we were going to his open houses that he was saying like I can't take gifts from anybody. I have to whatever like.
Yeah.
So
I got to pass my ethics board. Baby.
right. So I'm sure that there's some type of something that would disqualify him from services getting paid by another government.
Yeah. So I will
So
I will restate my issue with this.
I think
right?
you're half right. Yeah.
because the half right is that's the key. I think is if you have a member of the family that works in some part for or has worked for the federal government to any level at that point, you essentially subjugate yourself to further investigation because of something that somebody might have gained
Right.
on the back end from. Whereas if this was just any normal, a CEO of an American company
Yeah.
doing the same thing, no issues. Shady, kind of gross, but at the end of the day,
Then they
there's
would
no
tie his
conflict of
family
influence.
into. I think they would tie his family into if it was like the head of Chevron and he was getting money from the fucking Saudis and he
Yeah.
was funneling it through another country to his son and then into him. I think that he would get.
Yeah, and I would still have, like, I would be able to make the argument more that, like, that's something, like, you technically shouldn't be able to,
Yeah.
like, dive deep into. But, again, the nature of federal investigations, I guess it goes this way. And in this particular case, yeah, I got no love for Hunter Biden or
No,
anything that
certainly.
he's done. So, like, I got no issues with this. But I, like many of these things, when I feel like my own biases are being, like, fed at this point, if
Yeah.
I'm being affirmed, my own biases are being affirmed, I want to take a step back and be like, well, what if this was me? If
And-
I'm just out here trying to make my nut because my
Right.
dad's famous,
And I think-
what's a brother supposed to do?
I think that
Just not do a bunch of crack and just be smart about it and get away with it.
That's right. No, and I think that the root of what you're saying is very valid, that we should all be leery of the government's ability to gain private information about you. That's something that we should always be hesitant of, and we should be aware of, because the amount of information that Jesus Christ. Ideally, they shouldn't be able to get any information about you. In the world that we live in now, they should only be able to get the information that is pertinent to whatever they're investigating.
Yeah.
They shouldn't be able to just get wide swaths of information, and whatever is relevant, I'll use it, and whatever isn't, I just don't care.
Yeah. Similar analog to like a search of a house.
Yes, if
You
they
know,
can
you go in for a reason,
Yes.
and then, oh no, look, we found a bunch of guns.
Right.
Now we're going to use this. We're going to tack this on because we've also found you were doing something illegal in the process of executing this other separate search warrant. Like that's, you know, and at the end of the day, we talked about with like the January 6 people, when Bank of America just decided to hand over all the financial records of anybody
bad
that was in the
shit,
area.
yeah.
You know, that's all bad shit that technically the government should have zero authority to get a hold of.
And there are multiple credit card companies that also, you know, they've started to classify some purchases differently.
they all do it now.
Just to cooperate, make it easier for the government, for different entities to be able to look through that
Oh, yeah.
information.
If
you
we
know?
make it difficult for them, they're going to come after us next.
Yeah.
And we can just give them what they want, and it doesn't really affect us.
gun sales and stuff like that in particular. That's why I'd like.
Yeah.
That's why when I bought my pistol, I bought it in cash. Like I was like, I'll wait the extra week or whatever. I would like to buy it in cash.
Yeah.
Like it's of course it's going to be traced to me. It's registered in my name, but I don't. If I can keep as many institutions out of it as possible, you know.
Yeah, that's a good strategy.
Yeah.
Pull a couple $100 out of ATM over the course of like a month or two and get whatever money you need to pay this thing in cash, and then go drop a fat stack, and guarantee you the business owners are really not going to care about that.
Yeah.
They're probably going to like it because it's just that much. There's that much less red tape to go through. But fees, every person that swipes a credit card at any establishment, that establishment is getting charged a fee for every one of those transactions.
Yes.
That's when I got to fucking call. I got to pay my homeowners or not homeowners insurance, HOA fees. Unless I go down and get a fucking check or something like that to give it to them, pay it over the phone with a credit card, no problem. But there's a 3% fee for that because that's the way things work, and we're not paying for that because we're just this lowly fucking homeowner
Right.
association.
And that's why small business will do cash only for quite a while until they are making enough money to make that transition worth it.
Yeah.
To pay that portion of the transaction.
And oftentimes it's that fee is just hidden away in some portion of the cost somewhere.
Yeah.
You're paying for it in some capacity, but that's how these credit card companies make money too. Is the investigation over? Did we read that part yet?
We did not. And so it says, depends on whom you ask. Weiss's office has said in a statement Tuesday morning that the investigation is ongoing. Earlier in that day, Chris Clark, an attorney for Hunter Biden, said in a statement to CBS News, it is my understanding that the 5-year investigation into Hunter Biden is resolved. What the fuck does he know?
I would imagine that if you're getting charged with something, that means those investigations are done.
Right.
Because every investigation either ends in charges or no charges.
Right.
So the IRS tax evasion scandal is over and the gun charge is over. Whether or not they're still looking into the rest of the things, I know the Congress is, we know that.
Right.
But whether or not the DOJ and stuff is, I would doubt it after 5 years of investigating if they're not also throwing him in a fucking cage for all like the CP stuff and all the underage prostitution. Then he's not going to get charged for that because that's a pretty open and shut case. I mean, their fucking pictures and videos are time-stamped. I guarantee you can figure out where this was. I'm sure they're all geolocated too, so you can find out what all this was.
Someone geocached those pictures.
That's right.
Find out where that what it's
Right,
called.
bro. Yeah.
Where you find out like where it's
Yeah.
at. Oh, that's hiding shit.
That's why metadata is not a good thing.
Yeah. And then I sent you another article that's also from CBS. So apparently we're just having a CBS day.
Hey-oh. It's better than a CNN day.
And that's true. This one is entitled Two IRS Whistleblowers Allege Sweeping Misconduct in the Hunter Biden Tax Investigation. New transcripts show.
This is a good one.
This is from the 22nd. Two IRS whistleblowers allege sweeping misconduct, including interference in the Hunter Biden tax investigation, according to the GOP House Ways and Means Committee chairman, and newly released transcripts of the congressional interviews with the whistleblowers. They have both transcripts hot link there, which is nice. I'll give them credit for that.
Yep.
Earlier this week, Biden agreed to enter guilty pleas for 2 misdemeanor tax charges that related to his failure to pay tax on more than $3 million in income. We just talked about that. As part of the deal with Delaware U.S. Attorney David Weiss, who was appointed by then-President Donald Trump and was kept in the position by the current administration to continue the probe, Biden will avoid full prosecution on a separate gun possession charge. A Delaware judge must approve the... Oh, Jesus Christ. IRS whistleblower Gary Shapley, who recently spoke exclusively with CBS News' Jim Axelrod, told congressional investigators that IRS findings supported more severe penalties.
Check.
Quote, this recommended felony tax evasion charges. That's 7201 is tax evasion and 7206(1) is false tax return. So also a felony for the tax years 2014, 2018, and 2019. And for the title 7203, which is failure to file or pay, that is a misdemeanor charge for 15, 16, 17, 18, and 19.
Hey-oh.
The testimony we have just released details a lack of U.S. attorney independence, recurring unjustified delays, unusual actions outside the normal course of any investigation, Chairman Jason Smith told reporters. Testimony shows the U.S. Attorney of Delaware, David Weiss, tried to bring charges in the District of Columbia around March of 2022 and was denied. Weiss sought special counsel status from the Justice Department in the spring of 2022 and was once again denied. Weiss sought to bring charges in the Central District of California in the fall of 2022 and had that request denied in January of 23. A spokesperson for that's 3 times. That's 3 times David Weiss moved to try and investigate these charges and was denied all 3 times for things in which Hunter Biden was just found guilty.
Yes.
Right? So there was obviously evidence to investigate him because they found him guilty of these crimes. And he was denied 3 different times.
And at this point, those are way more charges, way more instances of the same charges that he was found guilty of.
This is just what he's pleading to now.
Yeah.
This is just the deal he has now. As a spokesperson for Weiss declined to comment, but earlier this month in a letter to Rep. Jim Jordan, the GOP chairman of the Judiciary Committee, Weiss wrote, I have been granted ultimate authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges. Throughout my tenure as U.S. Attorney, my decisions have been made, and with respect to the matter must be made without reference to political considerations. In a statement issued Thursday, the Justice Department said, as both the Attorney General and U.S. Attorney David Weiss have said, U.S. Attorney Weiss have full authority over this matter, including responsibility for deciding where, when, and whether to file charges as he deems appropriate. He needs no further approval to do so. So that is from Merrick Garland and also from David Weiss.
Interesting.
Merrick Garland, who's the head of the DOJ, just so everybody knows. There's literally the head of the DOJ besides the president, but they're, an independent organization at this point in time. That's completely independent. So
even though they totally work at the president's pleasure, the pleasure of the president, which is kind of hilarious.
Isn't it weird?
Super weird. Oy.
2 interviews do not make an investigation when more than 50 employees were named, especially when you consider that one recanted key elements of his testimony earlier this week. House Ways and Means Committee ranking Democrat Richard Neal wrote after the release of the interview transcripts, it's all premature, and the rush shows how pretextual this is in stunning abuse of power.
Good old pretextual.
Okay, let's talk about abuse of power.
Let's do it.
David Weiss was just denied 3 times in trying to bring charges that were successful at the end.
Why?
At what point and where there had to be someone who misused their power for this to be done.
Yes.
Because as we've just heard, you could talk about Jim Jordan all you want, right? Fuck him, but whatever. Merrick Garland and David Weiss have both told you that he has authority to choose when the charges are filed. When, where, and how. 3 times he was denied. Why?
So who is stepping over him? Because Merrick Garland's saying he has the power, but obviously he doesn't have the power because he was denied multiple times.
Why?
It sounds like the only person that could really step over him at that point is the actual Attorney General of the United States. I mean, logic would dictate, right?
Right.
If you're top dog and no one else in the DOJ can tell you otherwise, obviously only one guy can.
If you're following chain of command,
Yeah.
This week, after Biden's plea deal was announced, Attorney General Merrick Garland said Justice Department leadership had no role in the charging decision. As I said, from the moment of my appointment as Attorney General, I would leave this matter in the hands of the U.S. State's Attorney who was appointed by the previous president. Since gaining the majority in the House, Republican members of Congress have focused their investigatory powers on Hunter Biden's business deals, in some cases as far back as when his father was vice president. Well, if you're being fucking corrupt for 20 years and no one has done anything about it,
Yep.
during the presidential campaign, Joe Biden consistently maintained that he was not involved in any of his son's business dealings, and the White House has continued to deny any connection exists.
Never talked to him about it.
No.
Never talked to him about
And
it.
Karine Jean-Pierre has just continued to say nothing has changed. Nothing has changed.
Yep.
Nothing has changed. And because she keeps getting asked if did he lie? Did you mislead people? Did you lie? When Joe Biden finally answered, he said, I didn't mislead anybody. He blamed the Republicans. The Republicans are misleading people. Fuck, what did he say? God damn it, we gotta find it. Because he was rich. Joe Biden denies
love it.
lying to voters about business deals with Hunter. That should do it.
And I like the fact that when she's now up there on the podium, Karine Jean-Pierre is just, I'm not going to answer that question. You know, it's a family matter, blah, 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 and I'm just not going to answer it. And she's been getting the business, actually, surprisingly, from the press corps, the White House press corps, because in typical White House press corps fashion, they all have essentially decided what they want to get answers to because they all want to write the same articles. And as soon as KJP deflects one question, said, I'm not going to answer that, another mainstream corporate press journalist will ask essentially the same question, and then she'll just deflect again, and then deflect again. And it's making her look real bad to the point where she gets frustrated and says, okay, guys, that's enough for today. We're out of here. Bye. And so her deflection skills have been truly put under pressure lately, and she's really showing the lack of her ability to do a good job in this situation, which is really funny. Because I think it is no secret to anybody at this point that she's got to be the world's worst press secretary.
Oh, she's bad.
So bad. It's one thing to sit there and lie to me, because that's your job, is to lie to the press about everything that's going on and try to be able to put just the slightest bit of spin on it so that corporate press will be satiated in what they want. They can run their stories and they can make their money, get more subscribers, blah, 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 blah. But Jen Psaki was fucking great at that. It was infuriating to watch when she just blatantly lied to your face, but she was confident about it. She said it right up front and then moved the fuck on. And told you to sit down if you got a problem with it. Karine Jean-Pierre is not that skilled in at least that method of delivery here.
She can't even read from the binder in a coherent manner.
No, it's not good. It's really bad.
I can't fucking
makes for
find
good
this.
clips.
I saw it yesterday that he was asked again if he lied, and he said no, and he tried to blame the Republicans. I
have some clips of that. I can check that out real quick because it might be in one of those. But either way, he's definitely, at this point, he can't not lie about it. He has to lie about it because
Yes.
otherwise, he's already on record denying it. So then, you can't turn around and be like, yeah, that's, then you start to get into Clinton territory and the definition of is and all that good stuff. I wonder if it's in this tab here. Because I had some good ones here. Oh, no, that's about the other thing. Cell phone records. Hunter Biden at the dinner.
Yeah, I don't know.
Nah,
That's all right. It's out there. It happened. I saw it. I read it.
It happened for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we can read this article a little bit more. This whistleblower one. See if there's anything else in here. Congressional Republicans have alleged that Hunter Biden and the president's brother James Biden were involved in a deal with Chinese conglomerate CEFC China Energy in August of 2017. And in particular, GOP lawmakers are interested in an email that became public in 2020 when Republicans obtained information from a laptop. So that's what it is the 2017 does have to do with Hunter Biden saying that he's holding money for Joe Biden.
For the big guy.
Yes. So that's what that deal is.
And then two corroborating supposed witnesses or accomplices have verified that they were like,
Right.
yeah, no, the big guy was
Right.
Big Joe.
10 held by H for the big guy.
That's
a
right.
shorthand for 10% held by Hunter Biden for his father.
There's the big guy line.
including Bobolinsky. According to the now public transcript of the interview with the committee, Shapley told congressional investigators that interest in references to Dad and the big guy was blocked by a senior prosecutor working for Weiss. When the email became public in 2020, the author, James Giller, told the Wall Street Journal that Joe Biden was not involved. He did not respond to CBS News' questions. Hunter Biden's team did not respond to a request for comment from CBS News. One of his lawyers, Christopher Clark, has in the past denied that Biden ever gave his consent to access his computer data or share with others. Okay, we've literally seen multiple interviews from the guy who ran the computer shop.
Yes.
Joe Biden or Hunter Biden turned in his laptop, signed the form that says if you leave it here for, I don't remember, it was 30 or 90 days or whatever, it's mine and I can do whatever I want with it. Signed that. It's a legal document from a business owner.
Yep.
It was so fucking high on crack, doesn't remember that he dropped it off. It then belongs to that guy, whatever his name is, with the fucked up eyes, the whole
whatever.
He's got a book.
Yeah.
It's a whole deal. It belongs to that guy. He doesn't need to consent. After 90 days or 30 days or whatever it is, he doesn't have to consent.
It becomes his property.
He then can do whatever he wants with it.
Yep.
That guy even talked to the FBI, and the FBI's like, yeah, we know about all this stuff.
He literally, because he made a copy of the hard drives, made multiple copies of it, gave one to his...
As any smart person would.
Yes, and then he gave one to his father, who I guess had been kind of a higher up in the Navy or something like that, and said, I need you to get this to the FBI. Delivered it to the FBI in 2019. And then it's been all quiet since then, more or less. He's had a few FBI handlers that were like trying to like make sure he didn't come out publicly and do all this stuff. And it seems like there was absolutely some more shady shit going on by the FBI, of course. But
because remember, it was November of 2020 when we, as a public, learned about the laptop.
Yes.
In 2019, the FBI had this fucking laptop, the hard drive with all this information on it, way before Rudy Giuliani had it.
Way before
then.
Rudy.
They knew that he was addicted to drugs. They knew that he was breaking federal gun law. They knew that he had all the, like you said, the CP stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing. Did nothing at all.
All of which are massively illegal federally illegal situations.
This government is not here to protect you. No. They are not here to serve you. That is not the purpose of this. They're here to steal your money and try and put you in a fucking box.
Yup. It's a pretty sweet deal.
In a congressional interview, Shapley also alleged that there was a recovered WhatsApp message, from Hunter Biden dated July 30th, 2017 that was addressed to a Chinese businessman with whom he was involved at the time about an outstanding payment.
That's right.
Quote, I am sitting here with my father. We would like to understand why the commitment has not been fulfilled yet. Why the commitment made has not been fulfilled, Hunter Biden allegedly wrote. According to the transcript, he added, I would like to resolve this now before it gets out of hand. And now means tonight.
Oh, bro.
I'm sitting here with my father. So let me ask you, right? Why mention your father if it's not a relevant detail?
So this is what I hear at this point of people trying to give the devil his due and play devil's advocate, is that he just knows that because of his name and his association, he can just drop that in text messages because that is like it's a strongman tactic. Regardless of my dad sitting right here, unless Joe Biden's sitting right there, it doesn't really matter. He can just say, I'm sitting here with my dad, bro.
Yeah.
You better fucking pay us because you want me to get him involved, do you? And it's kind of like it's a bluff. It could be a bluff. That's kind of what I've heard from that side.
Well, and it seems like this is total conjecture now, right? With as degraded as we have seen Joe Biden to be mentally since he's been president, and how deep his devotion for his son is reportedly, it seems like his son could fairly easily fucking take advantage of him if there's money or political favor to be gained, and if Hunter Biden also makes some cash off of the other side, good for him.
And now, I mean, he's been attached to the hip to his dad ever since all this stuff really started to gain heat. He has not left his dad's side.
Right.
Which is, and in his current mental state, Lord knows what's going on there.
In a statement, Shapley said of the now public transcript, which isn't it weird that just because Hunter Biden doesn't work in the government, there's zero question about that. Like, it was weird when Donald Trump had his daughter working in the White House and his son-in-law because they're working there, which again, I'm not defending. They shouldn't have been doing that.
Yeah.
But just because Hunter Biden's just hanging out there, like, it's not weird. He's a grown man. He doesn't need to live in the White House with his dad. What are you doing there?
It's like Nancy Pelosi's daughter becoming Senator Feinstein's caretaker now that she's essentially an invalid.
Really?
Pushing her around. And because she was once a registered nurse or something like that. So she's pushing Dianne Feinstein around and taking care of her, and she's
What
her
the
caretaker.
fuck, you guys?
Yeah, for real. That was like a couple months ago. That story. Whenever she first came back to Congress, in the looking all crypt keeper-ish and
Oh, dude,
real
it's
rough,
bad.
man.
Trying to say,
Just
I've been
go
here the
home.
whole time. Shit like that.
Bro. She makes Joe Biden's dementia look light.
Remember, it was also Pelosi's daughter who made the Jan 6 documentary.
That's right. The different daughter. But,
Yeah. Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Multiple daughters
All
going
right.
on.
Well, at least there's that.
At least there's a little bit of separation there. What do you think about this hay bag, huh? It's pretty good for a nice little
Yeah,
Hefeweizen.
I like that one.
It's light. It's
It
not-
has more
not too
flavor than
sharp.
the pale ale did.
Yeah, the pale ale was real chill.
Yeah.
Good golf
It
course
was
beer.
like, yeah, that would be a good like summer beer, like a party beer. You
Yeah.
know, that's a great party beer.
Oh, for sure.
In a statement, Shapley said of the now public transcript, I believe Republicans and Democrats in the House and Senate should come together to examine these facts by interviewing other witnesses and reviewing documents to fully understand what happened during this 5-year-long investigation. I fulfilled my oath of office by participating in this process, following the rules, and telling the truth to the best of my ability, despite the risks.
Despite the risks.
The White House referred CBS News to an earlier statement to reiterate only that the president has not been involved in the investigation into his son. President Biden has made clear that this matter would be handled independently by the Justice Department under the leadership of U.S. Attorney appointed by former President Trump, free of any political interference by the White House, said the statement. He has upheld this commitment.
You know what really bothers me about that whole statement, right? Is you're talking about how disjointed and unaffected the actual federal government is from its constitutional mandate of separation of powers.
Yeah.
You're now talking about how essentially the creation of the deep state really came into play here, is when you as the president can go, hey, I'm going to let the Justice Department do their job and I'm not going to interfere even though they do work for me. And then you're essentially advocating all of your responsibilities to run this entire bureau of government that was created for you to run, and saying, I'm not going to do this anymore. That is the creation of the deep state.
Right.
That's it right there. That if somebody's not going to get involved in their own Department of Justice because it would be too political, red flags all around. That means that entire agency is too big for its own britches and needs to be fucking cut back, because the president needs to be in charge of the DOJ. That's his fucking job.
Yeah.
He's not a king to run the nation as he pleases, as they all like to, and we will get further into when we talk about some of the SCOTUS shit. He is divorcing himself, like every other president before him at this point, since the creation of these agencies, to give them their own power. They appoint who's in charge, and then the Congress checks off, yeah, that's good, he can be in charge or whatever. It's literally all politics.
Right.
It's all political. There's nothing about the upper echelon leadership in any agency that is not political. All the appointees are political that run every facet of every office in the DOJ. And then you're just going to walk away from it and say, like, well, I'm not going to get involved. He wasn't my pick for the job. Well, yeah, he was. He was your pick for the job. He's your guy. But now you're going to say, I can't control him because I want an independent justice system? Fuck you. This is deep state doing deep state shit.
Yeah.
And they spell it out every time. They're going to allow the Justice Department to work independently from the branch of government that runs it and controls it. That's a runaway deep state. I don't know how else you define it.
Well, especially because the powers that are, I mean, in an ideal world, right? In the way the Constitution, I think, is supposed to run, the way the president uses the powers that are under his control, right, like the Justice Department, help dictate for the country what kind of a job he's doing.
Yeah.
If he's unfairly wielding the Justice Department to go after people that he doesn't like, we know this is a corrupt president who shouldn't be here, which
Yeah.
will also dictate to Congress, we should probably impeach this guy, maybe do something about what's
Maybe
going
we
on
could-
here.
we
You
can
know,
make sure they don't have that much power
Yes.
the next time.
this optical separation from the executive powers that are actually assigned to it. Is like he's a way to try and
Obfuscate
construct
responsibility.
and construct a veil of anonymity almost around what's going on, because there's obvious deception, obvious
Corruption.
Yeah, but obstruction that's going on in this investigation because David Weiss applied 3 times for these charges or to try and proceed them in some manner because one of the times was to try and be a special counsel, but all pertaining to these charges and was turned down each time. So even though we have the White House saying that they aren't interfering, we have the only other person assumably above him in the Justice Department who's saying, I'm not doing anything. But someone is hindering you in this process. But you're saying you don't have anything to do with it because you're not involved. You're saying you said that you wouldn't do anything about it. So who's doing this then? Who else has the power to do this?
I would say either the FBI, which is the obvious decision, but also CIA.
Yeah.
Somebody, somewhere, within the executive branch in its entirety is obviously giving pushback, and whether or not it's from within the actual Justice Department, within the FBI, within the CIA, who knows where it's coming from, but he's getting it from somewhere. And I would guess that it's coming from the all too powerful intelligence community in some capacity. It has to be the NSA, maybe, I don't know, but it's, you know, it's a perfect way for them, like you said, just to be able to like kind of have that veil of ignorance between departments that they technically run. It's how you can get away with this at this point is just, it's beyond me. I mean, I guess the public's opinion towards like how our government's run and the way we perceive it as a nation as a whole is so convoluted and fucked up and twisted these days that most people don't even understand how wrong this is.
So I pulled up something about the United States attorneys because I was trying to see like what the chain of authority is, right? So United States attorneys are officials for the U.S. Department of Justice who serve as the chief federal law enforcement officers in each of the 94 U.S. federal judicial districts. Each U.S. attorney serves as the United States chief federal criminal prosecutor in their judicial district and represents the U.S. federal government in civil litigation in federal and state court and within their geographical jurisdictions. U.S. attorneys must be nominated by the president and confirmed by the Senate.
That's that whole, like, just check the box, make sure we have enough votes. He's our guy. Well, confirmation system is so skewed.
Offices are government lawyers who... They're part of the Department of Justice. U.S. attorneys receive oversight, supervision, and administrative support services through the Justice Department's Executive Office for United States Attorneys. So elected U.S. attorneys participate in the Attorney General's Advisory Committee of United States Attorneys. So I bet that's another level that could deny him.
Yeah, but the committee involved, which is ever so common in centrally controlled institutions, right?
Now it's created in 1973.
Oh, of course
Consists
it
of
was.
17 United States attorneys selected by the Attorney General. They are intended to represent office size, judicial district issues, and diversity. Service on the committee normally shall not exceed 3 years. New members are appointed each year to provide for broad representation of the United States attorneys nationwide. So Merrick Garland also selects all the people, because it's been 3 years.
Yeah.
So all the people that are currently on there, he selected.
Yep. I would imagine all, if not the majority of.
Well, it's 3 years, so they can't serve any more than 3 years. There's only 17 of them, so it's been 3 years since they got in.
So everybody who has come in, he's had a hand in.
Yes, currently, yes.
It's so incestuous, is it not? God.
So I could be wrong about this, but it seems like the only other person that could hinder David Weiss would be this membership, this board.
Committee.
Yeah, the Advisory Committee of U.S. Attorneys.
Bro. And there's a makeup of them from all around and various, you can just pick and choose whoever you want ideologically to be in there.
Function. The Advisory Committee has 2 functions. It gives United States attorneys a voice in department policies and advises the Attorney General of the United States. In advising the Attorney General, the committee conducts studies and makes recommendations to improve management of the United States Attorney's operations and the relationship between the department and federal prosecutors. It also helps formulate new programs for improvement of the criminal justice system and delivery of legal services at all levels. In serving the United States attorneys, the committee coordinates the collective efforts of the United States attorneys with divisions and agencies of the Department of Justice and departments and agencies external to the Department of Justice. It also represents the United States attorneys with the Department of Justice, other departments and agencies of the government, and occasionally private organizations. They don't do anything.
No. So they exist to make sure that they have the right people in place to do whatever it is that whoever's in charge wants them to do.
Yeah.
And they can essentially craft and curtail the entire policy of the entirety of how the state's attorneys generals work. That seems so fucking corrupt. I don't even know where to begin. That's so insane. This Deep State 101, bro. Deep State 101 put a giant board in place that controls the entirety of how this federal legal system is going to go, and then just let them loose to like run it how they feel like it.
Yeah.
And then the guy who's ultimately in charge gets to keep their hands clean of all the fuckery that happens. It seems like a pretty solid system, honestly, if you just want to get away with whatever the fuck you want to get away with and trample all over the laws and rights of everyday Americans. It's a sweet deal. It's a good way to keep your fucking crack-addicted, whoring son out of jail and enable him to funnel you millions of dollars. It's a pretty sweet system if that's what your goal is. Jesus. And I like, of course, that the CBS, at the very end of that article, CBS asked Hunter Biden's legal team for comment, and there's been no response.
Nope.
Of course not. You can't come at us like that. Come on now. Let's see if I have anything else to add to this whole thing. I don't think so. I had an Axios article, but it hits everything that we've hit so far.
Yeah, there's going to be a lawyer or another hearing in July, later this month, that is just for a judge to verify the plea deal.
Yeah.
So, we'll see what happens with that. I don't really have any
I'd imagine once
reason to believe that it won't be verified or validated.
No, because you can't have a rogue judge going out there and going against the entirety of the DOJ at this point and their recommendations. So it's done. It's an open and shut case, right? We're done. We're done. Way to go, guys. So fucking insane, man. This is what drives me so fucking crazy. It's just this constant like back and forth of just openly displaying the corruption involved in all of government, and it just drives me nuts.
So this is a video of Hunter Biden and Merrick Garland at the same deal?
This is just him at the dinner. Didn't really come up to the point where we really needed to watch it, but it's just kind of... We'll just shut off the music. He's out there, he's hobnobbing, he's shaking hands, he's having a great time.
Like he didn't just avoid prison.
Yeah. Which he never once actually worried about.
Who is with him? Who's this woman? Is he married?
Know. I don't believe he's married. And honestly, I just don't really. And everybody sees him, wants to come up and shake his hand and do all this shit. It's like
I'm
all
put
of
my
you
hands
people.
On both you guys.
Yeah, that's right. This is how we do things in the club that you don't belong in. Just hanging out with all these super powerful, super wealthy people, laughing and joking. And
I wonder if there's any. Was that Ro Khanna?
Yep, that's Ro Khanna right there. He's just.
I wonder if he's looking
happy.
at this like this is not good.
Yeah. Ro Khanna never looks happy, bro. I've never seen him in any interview look like he's having a good day.
Yeah.
Right there. Yeah, there you go. He's having a good time. But yeah, that's part of the thing everybody's getting pissed off about at this point is he's just at the dinner. He's having a great time. And, Karine Jean-Pierre was getting grilled about it again by the press. And she's like, it's a state dinner. Family is often involved at the state dinners. Let's see here. That's Biden on... This is Supreme Court stuff. Okay. That's all I had for Hunter Biden stuff. It's all bad. It's all bad. I think we've done a really good job, though, at just shitting on every major institution that we've come across so far today. So we've done a good job at that.
They all hate you and want you to die.
Amen. So. I made sure to include that line in the article this month. It has to happen. If I'm talking about institutions, you just got to put it in there.
Okay, so we're going to talk Supreme Court?
Let's do it.
Okay.
And as you break it open, I'm going to go pee again because me and my small girlish bladder have to do that. I've been slow on the beers today, too, so I don't know what's going on.
So over the last couple of days, the Supreme Court has started to release its decisions for this session. There were some hotly contested decisions and cases that were going on. So we're going to talk about probably not all of them because we don't really care about all of them, but a few. So like affirmative action, there was the one with the web designer and the student loan forgiveness. There was one for state voting. I have an article from Reuters, and they have all kind of the major ones from this year. So we can use that as a guide and talk about them. as we go. I think we have some interesting discussion to go with them. So we can talk about affirmative action first because that one just happened 2 days ago. The court on June 29th struck down race-conscious admissions programs at Harvard University and the University of North Carolina, effectively prohibiting affirmative action policies long used to raise the number of Black, Hispanic, and other underrepresented minority students on American campuses. It ruled that affirmative action admissions programs that consider an applicant's race in ways like Harvard and UNC did violate and the U.S. Constitution's promise of equal protection under the law. So we've actually talked about the Harvard thing before with the Asian students, that they were being denied acceptance at a higher rate because there was a disproportionate amount of Asian students that were being accepted into these colleges compared to what the national, like what the geographic is for the nation.
Yes.
So
they were not satisfied with that because they had more extracurriculars, they had higher test scores, they had better GPAs, and yet they were still being refused admission to these colleges because of their race, which is, I mean, I don't know any other way to say it, but that seems pretty racist to me. It wasn't just the white people.
yes, yeah, no, there isn't. Until about 5 years ago, there wasn't another thing to call it other than racist.
Yes.
And now
Now it's anti-racist. It's actively anti-racist.
That's right.
There we
It's
go.
good. There's too many of them in there. We need to get them out. Right.
Yeah, if you're using the word them towards any group of people like that, you should probably check what you're doing.
Yeah, it's not good. So
It's not good.
They're,
Them.
yeah,
Those people.
People were obviously very upset. You have a from Patty Murray here,
Yeah, this
right?
is Patty Murray.
Oh,
Or-
this is about what is
This one is canceling
this-
student
okay,
debt.
okay.
I think wonderful Pramila Jayapal of Seattle, who's a
Of course.
federal representative there. She was very up in arms by saying diversity is our strength. Obviously, you can't go without using the slogan. And our institutions, once again, should reflect the diversity of our nation. This decision is terrible and a huge step backward. Period.
So I think that it's worth at least a test, right, to see if the prejudice that the left claims exists will present itself in colleges, right? And I don't mean the demographics of the country. I mean, if we're looking at the applicants that are there and based off of whatever metric you want to look at, they're being roughly admitted in whatever seems
It's like by the applicant.
I lost my train of thought.
It's like however many applicants are applying, those the racial makeup of the applicant pool
right.
should be reflected of the applicants that get admitted.
Right.
Word.
Right. And unless
I can read your brain.
Yes, thank you. So it's worth a test to see if it's going to be there or if it's going to be far off the edge. If now that this isn't there, we're just going to have colleges with only fucking white people in it, then maybe there's an issue.
Well, that
maybe
won't
there's
work.
something going on, right? But I don't think I don't think that's what's going to happen.
It won't,
You know?
and I'll tell you exactly why. I think it was because there was two particular big court cases, right? It was it Stanford or Harvard, and then another like North Carolina or something like that.
Harvard and North Carolina. I think you're right.
Yeah, and Harvard has since announced that while this was going on, this was a while back, they said they were going to essentially step away from the looking at people's race in consideration for application, and they're going to go to more of an essay format and just focus on the essays. Well, their way around that is like you have an essay talking about race or something like that, or your what you did to overcome adversity or so on and so forth because of your race, and then they go, well, we don't do it on race, we do it on essays.
Right.
And so there's 1,001 ways every single one of these institutions will definitely continue their exact practices for however they want to show the makeup of their school. They're going to continue those practices. This is literally going to change nothing. In my estimation.
Yeah. it just
They're going to
can't be
do
a-
whatever they want to do. They just don't. They have to find a couple loopholes, a workaround, because it's not mandated by law anymore that they have to do this for this amount of reasons. Because, I mean, even I don't know if they talk about it in the actual opinions. Because, to be perfectly honest, affirmative action has been a racist program since its creation. And the whole idea was that eventually we will get rid of this because we will move past this need for affirmative action. People will just start to admit people for their merit or however, and then we can move past this, and then the nation will be healed from its racism.
Right.
And so there was always supposed to be an end to affirmative action, but it's too good a fucking hot issue to let go, especially with an upcoming election coming on, which is every fucking day in America now, because as soon as the next election's done, we start campaigning for the next election. There's no downtime anymore. It all just picks up and keeps going. So this is fucking fodder for everybody who has a voice on the Hill right now in Congress. They're all going to run with this shit because it's so good. But I've heard multiple people now talking about how this is a great thing. Finally, we can get back to a merit-based, a more merit-based system, and people that actually strive hard and work hard to achieve something can get recognized for their hard work, their effort, and their achievement, and they won't lose out on somebody because there's a quota that needs to be met based off of an immutable characteristic that somebody has. There's a good group of people that do not like the fact that affirmative action also kind of has this implementation that you couldn't do it without the government's involvement either. And
Right.
I think especially in 2023, there's an argument to be made about like disenfranchised people, but I would say that's 100% class-based, not race-based.
Yeah.
The racial makeup of whatever particular class is having a hard time advancing in the world is going to be, it's going to be reasons for that. It's going to stem back to redlining and blah, 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 and all these different things where they, the Democrats primarily just funneled everybody into their own little racial groups. And then some people, some areas of the city were bad and blah, blah, blah. It all works out that way. But for the people that might have, the governor candidate Byrd, who's running for governor of Washington, he was, I grew up in the ghetto of Oakland. And I think it's very important for people to recognize that you can get out of those situations, and you shouldn't, you should be able to do that under your own merit, and you should be recognized for that. And thank God there's that kind of meritocracy that's somewhat still alive. But when it comes to college admissions, if you were that person, you just happened to be the wrong color, you got yourself out of poverty. Maybe you're a first generation immigrant who parents moved over here and had to live in bad neighborhoods because you didn't have money, blah, 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 and you studied hard and you worked hard and you got the grades, you did extracurriculars, and now you can't get into this Ivy League college, which is going to set you up for life because your skin's the wrong color. That seems like a system we should probably get rid of.
Yeah.
It seems very anti-meritocratic, incredibly racist, and I would like to think that in 2023, regardless of how much the government wants us to hate each other because of our race, I'd say that we generally live on in spite of that, and we make friends, and we do business, and we go to school, and we work, and we do all these things with all sorts of races from all sorts of backgrounds, and it's generally works out pretty well when that happens. And we do it under our own volition. We don't do it because the government tells us we have to do it. Those days, I think, are gone. You're talking about massive institutions being forced to quit being racist for whatever reason. And at the end of the day, a lot of these colleges, the number one, I don't remember the exact stat, so I might be off with this, but a large group of Ivy League students are always going to be generational, what do you call those? Legacy students that come from people, their parents that were alumni to that particular college. Those people always get in compared to anybody else coming out of, middle of nowhere that don't have a pedigree and a background to support it. You fix that issue, maybe you have a much larger pool of people to pick from. Then you don't have to worry about the whole legacy program. And then you can kind of curtail whatever kind of diversity you want in your particular school.
The legacy thing is not good either.
No, it's just Nepo babies left and right. But, I mean, at the end of the day, meritocracy is more alive in America than ever before, right? Especially in, say, entrepreneurship
I think I
and
made
business.
that argument last week, so I have to agree with you.
Okay, good. I'll ride that.
I think I remember saying that. So.
And when it
More
comes
than,
to
I
colleges,
think what I said is more than people want to believe.
Okay. Yeah, for sure. I would definitely agree with that. And if whatever your future is that you want for yourself, if you feel like going to an Ivy League college is a necessary step to accomplish your goals, I would assume at that point, essentially, you're just trying to get into the politically elite at that point, because that's where they all come from. So I would second guess your life choices at that point and probably say you should probably find another way in. But there's so many more good schools these days that fuck these places. If that school is so concerned with their racial makeup of their student body, find another school where they don't. Go be undeniable somewhere else out there in the community to really show that you're a badass and that you can make your money and gain your power by yourself. And you don't need the name of a school on a piece of paper that sets you up and gives you an extra boost up in the world. If you do not need to go to this Ivy League college to get whatever job you feel like you want to in the future, get away from these places and go someplace else. It seems not that difficult. Go to fucking colleges abroad if that's the case. There's tons of other massively good schools around the world. Oxford comes to mind over in the UK. But you don't need the Ivy League schools unless you want to get into politics. And even then, there's people that get in without doing that anyways. So I would just question, if this is your whole thing and you have to go to Harvard, I'm sure there's other ways, man. And even if there is, maybe that's not the right decision for you. If that's a huge thing for you and you need to go to Harvard to get into whatever job you're going to get, I don't know. I have a hard time coming to terms with if you want a particular job, you have to go to this school.
And I think the only reason you should have to, quote unquote, have to go to a particular school is if that school has the best program in the country for whatever you're trying to do.
Like
if you're like
Stanford law, or
yes, I have
Harvard
no
law
idea where any of those things rank because I don't know. So yeah, like you said, hypothetically, if Harvard law is the best in the nation and you want to be a lawyer, you want to be the best lawyer, you should try and go to Harvard Law because that's going to be the best law school. That's going to set you up for the most success. I don't know if that's the case. That's just the example that I used, but but I definitely agree we should be working to get ourselves out of that system where the name of somewhere is enough to get you into something.
Yeah.
That's it, because that
credentialism.
Yes, the credentials, because it trickles down to requiring degrees to have certain jobs that don't actually don't effectively require a degree, which
more or less leads us to like the next Supreme Court thing, which is fucked up.
The left is actually starting to catch on to that. I've heard articles or stuff on NPR about jobs requiring degrees when they don't actually need to, and how that's holding more people out of higher wages than like a lot of the other shit people are complaining about. You know,
Daily Wire made a big deal about it when they've been expanding. Every time they kind of make a plug to go to Daily Wire /careers or something like that, they make a point of saying, we don't require any degree whatsoever for you to come work for us. We require experience.
Yeah.
That seems like a good way to go about it.
And all I always use myself as an example, and I always if any of the boys are listening, I'm not shitting on you, but I can only use myself as an example because that's all the experience I have. But like, we work with multiple people who all went to college after high school.
Yep.
We all have the exact same job now, and I worked there for longer than them, partially because they went to school and they had other shittier jobs before they worked here.
Yeah.
So,
and then ideally in a world they would have to pay back a bunch of money now that they're not benefiting from.
And they do. At least one of them does. And their degrees aren't relevant to the field they work in. They have nothing to do with anything that we do at work, but they spent money or borrowed money in whatever the case was to go to school because that's what they were told they had to do.
Yep.
They now have a degree. In a lot of cases, I always shit on communications, but that's like the biggest thing where people who don't find
Get a comms degree.
Yes, they don't find a major because they don't know really what they want to do when they're done. They get a communications degree because it can be used for management. It's applicable to a lot of different things. It's a generalized degree that you can use for a lot of different places.
Communications and business administration.
Right, that's great.
Or whatever.
That's great that you have that degree. It's a degree. It checks off that box that any of those jobs are going to be looking for because they also know that it doesn't matter. They're willing to take your bachelor's in communications because to them it doesn't matter either. They just need you to be able to check that box so they can justify drawing the money for your salary at X dollars per year.
Yeah.
That's all that is. And that whole system, it's just different layers of that same credentialized system. And it's I think that at one point it may have grown out of meritocracy, you know, that if you went to Harvard, then it showed that you had worked the hardest, and now that you have a
Yes.
degree there, I know that you're a fucking hard worker. But all these other things that leached into it, whether it be the legacies or the donations, I mean, there's any number of things that go into the generalized corruption of being able to get people into schools. We saw all the actors, right, just a couple years ago
yeah, they
that
all
paid to
got
get their
hemmed
kids. They were lying about them being in like rowing crew teams and shit like that,
Yes.
or crew rowing teams. So there are a million different ways to skin that cat to get your kid into college if you have the means.
Yes.
They don't have to be smart, they don't have to be adequate, but they're going to be able to get that degree and then walk into a job somewhere.
Yep.
They're all bred from the same thing.
Yeah.
And it's a horrific system that, like I said, I think came maybe from meritocracy at one point, but
And I want to build off of some, like what I was saying before, right? Because it was a little too pointed and scatterbrained. But I think as a society, with all the big changes that we need to make on a societal level, there's going to be a lot of pain points and pinch points and big issues and massive turns away from the way things have always been done, quote unquote, always been done, because they've always been done a certain way, and people have always found ways to take advantage of that system and then slowly curtail the system into how it works now. Part of the reason college cost so much, because they found a good way to have the federal government essentially subsidize all the financing required to it, and then all the schools just have to make money. Boom.
right.
But if we do not recognize as a society that we need to step away from these corrupt systems to create new ones, there's going to be fallout. People are, like I said before, don't take that job because it requires this one thing that should not be required.
Non-compliance. That's what I was talking about earlier.
Yeah. And it's up to us to go through that period of shit. I mean, at the end of the day, we're the millennial generation anyways. We're going to get the worst roll of the dice because of the way the boomers set everything up to run and how Gen X just kind of went along with it.
Right.
And now you have all these people that are choking underneath the fucking student loan debt that they fucking created. The whole system was created by them. The reason you have to go to college or whatever, quote unquote, is because they said we have to. And they created entire industries that were like reliant on that whole system. There is an argument to be made about, like, if I'm looking at two candidates, one of them went to California State University and the other one went to Harvard. But other than that, the rest of their resumes say, I'm going to go with the guy that went to Harvard because that's a more prestigious thing. It could work in that way, right? But you run a train on that thing for 20, 30 years. Next thing you know, it just becomes a de facto box to check, and it has no
150
real
years.
meaning. Yeah, 150 years. And so it's a tough thing to recognize, but society needs to recognize these things and start to divorce ourselves from these massively corrupt institutions and systems.
Yes. The non-compliance I was talking about earlier, I was talking about laws at the time, but it doesn't relate just to laws. It's all systems and institutions that are not working in a liberatory manner.
Yeah.
They're not working in any type of fair or just manner. Don't comply with that. The fucking shoes is a great example.
Yes.
The shoes is a great example. It's a stupid one. It's a very small one, and it's one that I'm regretting now. But it's one of those things that if you like, I got the hair up my ass about not buying shoes from Asia. So I was like, I'm only buying American shoes now. I've only bought one pair of shoes in the last like year and a half because I can't fucking buy any shoes from fucking Asia now because of what I did to myself. But it's the point being, when you see something you don't agree with, don't comply with that. I think the jobs is a really, really good example of like, I don't want this job if that's how you're going to operate this company off of this weird arbitrary thing where you want me to have a piece of paper that says something even if it's not relevant to this job. You want me to just be able to check a box. I think that that's a really good example of that, of not complying with systems that you can see are not working in favor of the country or of yourself.
I'm not going to sign up for that.
There was the one company I found dope shoes. They were from South America, and I was like, well, these look cool. They're from like Brazil or something like that. And then when I went to the manufacturing page, they had all these pictures of like Asian people, and I was like, hold on. So I emailed them and I was like, hey, where do your shoes get manufactured? I'm like, oh, our shoes are ethically manufactured at a factory in China that we verify. Like, people are paid this. I was like, yeah, I fucking bet. I'm fucking sure. I don't believe you. Making them in China, dude. Just make them in South America. You don't have people there that can make them the same quality as in China. You have to make them in China.
You got to.
Fuck, dude.
You got to.
I was pissed.
Yeah, this is the company, the shoes that I just bought, called Lomo.
And you're trying to find out where they were made?
Yeah, trying to find out where they're made, and I can't find them anywhere. Like I can't find
That's
anything.
because they don't want you to know.
That's that what I'm. Well, they're a California company too, obviously. But the shoes, like these are the ones more or less that I have right here, and they're manufactured. Well, it doesn't say where they're manufactured, but they're sourced with Australian leather, Australian like lamb's leather or whatever it is, and then merino wool. So it's a merino sheep company. All their products are made from that.
The slippers look great.
The slippers, the moccasins.
Yeah.
I mean, even the boots look pretty nice. I got these. I got the nice casuals. You know,
Big
They're
fan. Those are cool looking shoes.
They're really nice, really comfortable.
Yeah, the moccasins look fucking great.
But you know how I know they were made by a third world child labor source somewhere? Because when I was looking at, you ever heard the similar type of shoe that's made called Cools?
No.
They're pretty popular these days. Kind of the same kind of foam insole and then like a fabric on top, real kind of like casual type deal. You know, those things are like $65 when you buy them, right?
Yeah.
These were like, they were under 30. And I was like, these definitely got some slave blood in them somewhere. But also, I'm a poor man and I like these shoes and they're affordable. So let's go.
That merino wool is soaked in children's tears.
Hey, better tears than blood, baby. Oh, well, any other closing thoughts on your on getting rid of
Affirmative action?
affirmative action?
No, I think that was good.
And this is just in school administrations or school admissions, right?
Yes.
This has nothing to do with the government hiring policies that still are in play. Every type of government contractor, mostly unionized, that also have to adhere to these same type of things. This is just one aspect of it that's getting pulled away.
Yeah.
And we should be up in arms about this, obviously, because we still want to saddle everybody with a ton of student debt to attend an Ivy League school, because you have to.
Of course.
And now, our illustrious senator, the great Patty Murray, is really pissed off that the U.S. Supreme Court also rejected Biden's plan to cancel, quote unquote, or reduce student loan debt. She says this is a devastating setback for tens of millions of hardworking student borrowers who have been crushed with student debt and were counting on this relief. But the fight does not end here. We can do and must do more to show up and deliver for students and borrowers across the country. Which leads us...
Not that we need to change the system that saddles them with $40,000 in debt before they have a job.
No.
We need to make sure the government is paying for them to go to school.
Yes.
That's the only key. There's no way to reduce the possible amount of money that they're charged. Maybe a year ago, Breaking Points, Saga in particular, covered a news story. I don't remember which colleges, but it was a study of colleges that showed that their endowments more than paid for their bills.
That was a couple of the Ivy Leagues.
Yes, and so all of the money they make from tuition is just straight profit.
Yes.
It's just 100% profit. And I was trying to look into like what endowments are, and the only thing that I could find is an explanation of like an endowment is amount of money that the school gets from the federal government.
alumni.
I was like, and I'm like, so, but why though? Like, but why are they getting this money? Like, that's what I don't understand.
Yeah.
Why are they getting the money? And nowhere explained what's the deal with the money. They're just like, it's money that they get that pays for the stuff.
Yeah.
Like, okay, then why is anyone paying to go to school if everything's already paid for?
Yeah.
Like, it's just money that they get.
Just money, bro.
There isn't
Don't ask questions.
no.
Don't
And
ask
maybe
questions.
it's the Teamsters thing that I'm wrong. There is an answer. Like, I might just be an idiot, but
Well, there's definitely a reason. I thought that essentially was like,
I'm surprised no one roasted me in the comments about asking what a Teamster was. All those people talking shit. That's like a legitimate point that you
Right.
could have made. Like, you're a fucking idiot. Teamster's a real thing. Not one person.
that's because they don't know either.
They don't know either. They're like, fuck,
They don't
maybe
care.
it is just a mobster.
They're just pissed off that we were stepping on their dick a little bit.
Yep.
But I do know, like, the endowment, whatever it is, wherever it stems from, is essentially given to financial firms and then invested to try to get money on their investments, right? And that's where we have come to in a lot of these places. They've essentially have enough invested consistently to always be making more money and to actually not require any tuition be paid by the student body to support the operation of the school. Even even with their massively blown out bottom line when it comes to fucking the giant administrative state that runs all these colleges, quote unquote, runs them, that's where most of the money goes anyways.
Right.
It doesn't go to like the facilities or the teachers, or a portion does, but no, it all goes towards fucking administration.
Yes. I found out that in our state, because I was looking at all the education stuff, the bulk of the money does go to the teachers. These motherfuckers are still bitching about not making enough money.
Hey, man, teachers got to be paid more, right?
Dude, you're making all the money. You're making most of the money.
They weren't older than dirt.
There was
what she says.
a court case of like 10 years ago in the state that the state lost because they weren't putting enough money into education, and that started this enormous kickoff of education spending in Washington. That's why so much of our new taxes goes to education, is because they lost a case that they weren't spending enough money on school education.
And I mean, we saw the chart earlier today. I mean, outcomes are at an all-time
Right.
low.
Still getting worse.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
Sweet.
Still getting worse.
So whoever's spending the fucking money needs to be fired post-haste.
There was
please.
a really great study that I found that went into where all of the money that was going, but some of the information, the numbers match, but the time frames don't give you the information you want. So you can't really find out exactly how much certain people are making, or like certain groups are making right now. And you're like, this is the relevant information, and you've kind of selectively chosen to give this out.
all of which are government employees, correct?
For the state, yes.
So there you go. Should be public information.
Yeah, which I don't really understand how that works.
If I can Google any random military salary, I could Google that right now. We can find it out for any branch at any rank, and you'll get the base numbers.
I think you can for the state too. It just wasn't. I'll show you later, and I'll explain more. But I don't really understand how that works, that all of the teachers are state employees. Like, that seems weird,
And they have
because
unions
they
to back
all
them.
work for the Department of Education and then are like,
For the state.
Yeah.
The State Department of Education.
and then just
Unless they're in
contracted to a school or something.
If they work for a private school, I mean, every school is run by the same boss, essentially, right? It's the state DOE.
Right.
And so every public school, it goes back to them.
Under the umbrella of the Department of Education. So when they
Yeah.
sign a contract, it's to work for the Department of Education at a certain school for that given point of time.
I would imagine that's
Yeah.
how it works. I mean, at the end of the day, your immediate boss might be, say, like the principal, and then the principal reports this to the superintendent, more or
Right.
less, and then the superintendents report to probably a board of superintendents run by the Department of Education, who sets policy.
Yeah.
That's why they can pass a law for social and emotional learning, RIP live show, and then that just trickles all the way down to every single public school curriculum, because they
Right.
just set it at the top, it gets passed down, the school boards approve, not that they really have any choice, and then there that goes. But it's all centrally controlled giant bureaucracies.
Right.
And so, yeah, if you sign up, I mean, I don't know if you work for the teachers union, which might be the case, that public sector union, you might be doing that. We have a guy we can talk to about this, and I fully intend to at this point.
Yeah.
Former guest of the show.
Okay.
Mr. Keaton.
Oh yeah! Holy shit! Oh my god,
bro.
that's so stupid.
Like, bro. Let me
We're
just
sitting here fucking just. Oh, I wonder if it's this.
Right.
We like literally know someone that will come here and tell us.
Like, bro, let me just on the down low.
So funny.
Who pays you?
Yes, that's hilarious.
What's your check say? Does it
Yes.
come from the school? 'Cause
Yeah.
I'd be interested.
We got to get an update on how his first year went. His first
yeah.
full year as a history teacher.
Yeah. No
I'm
COVID and
interested.
stuff too,
Right.
So that'll be real interesting.
I know the way that he was teaching before, I thought was really weird, like broken up into subjects and shit. But
Yeah. But I remember being super in love with his methodology of trying to teach people about history and stuff.
He's a really good guy.
Yeah. Solid, bro.
I trust him. Yeah.
I would trust him with my kids if I needed a teacher.
Yeah.
I would ask him to politely quit his job and try to get a bunch of people together to pay him more than he was getting, and then just have him be the private educator of our children.
That might be worth it.
That'd be sweet.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, we'll talk about the next one. Obviously, like you were saying, Democrats are very upset about the money. We kind of all knew the moment this happened, this wasn't going to happen. Under the powers, they were trying to do it under these emergency powers, and then when the COVID emergency ended, we're like, well, this really isn't going to happen now.
Yeah, because it was the HEROES Act that they were justifying this whole thing's under, which essentially went to, canceling portions or paying off portions of people's debt when they were, at war and stuff like that. And under emergency authorization, this was allowed to happen. And then the minute the fucking COVID emergency ended, when they finally had to pull the trigger last May, whenever it got done, it's been like a year, I think, since the emergency ended. Maybe. I can't remember. But
Yeah.
because we talked about it at the time, I'm pretty sure.
Right.
But yeah, once that was done federally, it's all over at that point. You literally have no justification for doing this anymore. If you had a chance to get away with it, you lost it at this point because you had to pull the emergency.
And I'm going to plug Josh Keaton again because we talked about this when he was here. We had like a mini debate about student loan forgiveness, whether it was a good policy or not. That was a pretty good conversation. So I'm going to write this down and I will link to that in the notes for this episode, the audio version. So if you guys want that, and we can tell Colin to do it, and if he remembers to put it in the description for the YouTube video,
yeah, baby,
then he'll do it. So
it's usually one of those things I remember after the audio version comes out, and then I go copy paste the description that you write up because it's always so much better than mine.
Well, and I've gotten away from like writing them theatrically to just kind of breaking down what we're talking about and where the points are so that you can go and find the different timestamps.
Yeah.
So it's more basic now, but still very organized and user friendly. So after this happened, almost immediately afterwards, Joe Biden and the Biden administration announced a new plan that they have. Biden announced a, quote, new path for loan forgiveness and stated a federal rulemaking process which could take months. He also announced plans for a temporary 12-month ramp repayment program for student loan borrowers. Under this program, the Education Department will not refer borrowers who miss loan payments to credit agencies for 12 months. Biden said, quote, to give them a chance to get back up and running. Okay, so all these people who aren't making student loan payments, the vast majority of them were making them before.
Yes.
And then they stopped making them.
When they said they didn't have to pay them anymore.
Okay, so I'm going to be a dick for a second. People aren't going to like this, right?
Do it.
I don't have a lot of money, right? I don't. You know this. But you know this, I'm saying. If you suddenly have an extra $400 a month, you should not take on $400 more in expenses.
Go get a new car.
Because in hopes that the government is going to take away that money so you don't have to pay it anymore. I'm not saying you shouldn't have hoped for that. If I owed the government $20,000, I also would hope that they were going to write away that debt. I also would hope that. I wouldn't plan for that to be the case.
No.
That seems very ignorant. To assume that that's what's going to happen seems very, very silly. On many levels. First of all, to believe what the president says is a dumb thing to do. You shouldn't be doing that. You shouldn't be believing what the president says. They lie all of the time.
Yes.
This, no matter what he says, this was a lie. He knew when he said that they weren't going to be able to do it. He might have hoped they were going to be able to do it. He might have believed that he had a good enough legal team that they were going to find a way for him to be able to do it. There's no way he knew that he was going to be able to do this. He did lie to you. He knew this. There's no way. He knew that he wasn't going to for sure be able to get this done. He lied to you. Okay? Shouldn't be believing the president. The government is not going to take care of you. You shouldn't be looking to the government to take care of you, and you shouldn't expect that they're going to. We've talked about this many times today. We're going to talk about it forever. Every major institution hates you and wants you to die. The government is no exception. They are perhaps
the main proponent.
the perfect example of that. They hate you. They do not look out for you. They are not here to protect you in any way, shape, or form. If they had it their way, they would take all of your money and put you in a box and find a way to continue to make money off of you. That's what they would do, because they wouldn't have to look after you. They would have to give you the bare minimum of outside time and food, and everything would be great. They don't want what's best for you. This was a mistake. If I'm not in a position to be telling anybody how to spend their money, but you shouldn't have taken on more expenses if you didn't know that you weren't going to have to keep making those payments. In my opinion, you should have been stacking that money to the side, at least most of it. You know, if you're going to take $100 off the top or whatever, you should be piling a good portion on the side so that when this kicks back up, you at least have cash set aside to be making payments if you have fucked around your finances. Shit happens. Shit gets rough, so I don't even blame anybody if they're like, I had no choice but to pay, like make these. I had to move. I had to whatever. I understand.
Lost my job because of the pandemic.
Yes.
And so on and so forth.
Yes.
And,
I'm not shitting on anybody who found themselves in a rough position. if that's the case, then only the first 2 points apply. You shouldn't have been trusting these people. They are not looking out for you. They only wanted to get into office. That's why he said that. That's the whole point. So that's unfortunate if if the third thing is the case, like that you found yourself in that position, but this was not good. This was never going to work.
No, there's a whole level of personal responsibility that you divorce yourself from when all of a sudden you realize, okay, well, this is fine. And then to go down to the fucking Supreme Court steps and then bitch about how you have to pay back the last $20,000 of your student loans because you've already paid half of them, and then you were promised this, and now they're reneging on the situation. It's like, well, sorry, bro. I mean, this is what it's like to be involved in a corrupt system and to fall prey to the corruption that is pushed by your own federal government. If this does not instill a lifelong distrust in everything they do from this point on, this is your fault. And you need to understand it. They have just wronged you because they lied directly to your face like they always do.
Yes.
Right? But you're caught up in the middle of it. And I feel for you a little bit. But you better realize now that these people do not care about you, and they do not care about trying to help you out in any capacity whatsoever.
No.
This is the time to learn the lesson that they do not care about you, and no matter what they say or what they promise, they're going to lie to you about it, because all they want is to maintain their circle of power, to make sure they get to collect all their fucking money and to do all their corrupt insider trading and to do all this stuff. They do not care about you whatsoever, and this is a perfect time to realize that you should have a deeply instilled distrust and generalized, probably, hatred towards the entire establishment known as the federal government.
One of the things that will land us under the magnifying glass of the Washington State Domestic Violent Extremist Board is anti-government sentiment.
Yeah. I like that a lot.
That's
because
one of the things.
The minute you push back against the government, that means you're a terrorist now.
Yeah, at that point, they can start surveilling you and stuff like that. And the focus, Bob Ferguson's focus is that, or he said that we should focus on the pretext for action, which is the speech. We need to be focused if people are saying things that have anti-government sentiment or white supremacist sentiment. If they're saying stuff like that, we need to be watching them.
There's a term for that. It's called tyrannical government.
No, it's a watch list, Colin. So this is for safety.
Safety.
Yeah.
It's all for your safety.
Yes.
This allows us to make sure that you don't need to buy a gun. It's because we're looking out for you. And when your neighbor talks shit on the internet about how much the government is fucking you over, they're on the watch list now. You don't have to worry about them. We'll take them away from society. It's fine.
Thems are dangerous.
That's not good, bro. I need to become like an advocate for Mr. Byrd now and just make sure he gets in office, because that right there is
really
a
bad.
seriously fucked up issue right there.
We can talk about it in part 4 if you want. It's really bad.
I don't like that. All my nightmares tonight.
Yeah.
Hey.
Yeah, I was hoping that when Trent had sent to me, it was like totally doctored and shit. But then when I looked into it, I was like, oh, it's still pretty bad. Yeah, it's not as bad as you think it is, but it's pretty bad. Like, it's definitely not good.
Man, I don't want to move to Texas.
Dude, I'm telling you.
Yeah, it's not good.
Yeah.
I hate when the government becomes so tyrannical they force you to move from your home.
And that's if I'm going to be being on watch list for doing this show, I have to leave. Like I can't.
Oh yeah,
I can't stay.
I'm not getting
here.
hemmed up, bro.
No, I can't stay
Fuck
here
that.
for doing
for
this
talking?
show, for running our fucking business. I don't know. That's not a thing that I can stand for.
Oh my god.
I'll happily move to another state and
I'd have
continue
to.
to. Yeah,
I'd
I
have
literally don't have a choice.
Otherwise, we're going to fucking jail.
Yeah.
Prison.
I think we're gonna go to Texas in April for Trenton's birthday.
There you go.
Yeah, I think me and Cody are going to.
Nice.
Trenton will be here again in December for my birthday.
Nice. Birthday's last Christmas. That'll be fun. It'll be real fucking fun.
He said the flight was only like $500.
Oh shit.
So, both ways, that's not bad.
It's not bad at all, man.
I think I probably know
Considering.
someone. I think I might know someone who could probably give me a discount on a
Probably.
flight to Texas.
Yeah, we might be able to figure something
I
out.
don't know about Cody, but I just won't tell him what happened. Like, yeah,
Why
I
not?
don't.
Texas is awesome. Just don't tell anyone.
Yeah.
I'm not into Texas, man.
We'll have to see. I've never been there, but there are some other states that I'd be willing to check out also, you know.
There's still pretty big government type of people
Yeah.
down there. It's the same people with Florida. They just like it because it's their government. I'm going, nah, it's not. That's not the way, bro.
I like to be left alone. Like I would like to be in a place where you don't worry about any of the governments.
Yeah, it would
you
be
know?
sweet.
You know what the laws are. It happens. Like shit goes down, but
I'd be okay with having to go to town hall once a month. I'd be cool with that.
yeah,
If that's the extent of the government's involvement in my life, I'd be super down with that.
yeah.
I could definitely do some of that shit.
Trenton's town is pretty small from what I understand, but I'm convincing Jordan on harsh climates. You know,
Oh,
like
yeah,
this,
yeah.
Like this is the key to be left alone.
Well,
is
we're
to
getting
live in a
harsher
place-
out here, so it's good
Yeah.
training. You know, didn't
So-
used to be. It used to be mild as fuck out here.
Training for Trent was saying that he gets up like 115 out in Texas. You know,
Yeah, it's a different type though. It's a different heat.
Well, and he said it's not as dry as it's he expected. Like it's pretty humid down there.
Oh, he's down south too, right?
He's in the north. He's up by Dallas.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Ooh,
He's west of Dallas.
interesting. I don't know the topography that well.
No, but he said
I
that
know
it's
Dallas
like-
floods a lot, or
Yeah.
is that Houston?
I don't know.
One of them floods a lot. Deborah, you tell us.
Which one of those places floods a lot?
You're our
Why is
institutional.
it humid in Texas?
Yeah.
I thought it was flat and it's far away from the water, like up north, obviously. Why is it humid in Texas?
Yeah.
What's going on?
You know, it's the most difficult thing for me as, you know, somebody at least who has very anarchistic tendencies is I am a huge proponent and advocate for public lands.
Yeah,
And you only get that on the western side of the U.S. Once the further you go east, the smaller and rarer they get. There's no such thing as a wilderness area.
Right.
Once you go past like Montana,
and that's why I'm liking the idea of like Wyoming,
Houston floods. Boom, there it is.
Wyoming, Montana,
Dallas.
like some real fucked up territory. You
Yeah,
know?
somewhere you got to be hard to survive. You
Yes,
know.
yes.
That's Chad sent me that picture when they went to go visit his future in-laws.
Just
because
because it's a coastal state. That I guess just I assume just because it's so fucking big that it like eventually it would kind of wear off, you know. But
No. But nothing. There ain't no place in the world like that has weather like we have here. Though.
and that's why I said like even being in North Texas, you're still not that far from the water, like
Yeah.
comparatively, you know. As the
and
crow
there's no
flies,
giant.
yeah.
There's no giant mountain ranges to
Precisely.
stop shit.
That's what I was saying. Brandon
Yeah.
told me that I was an idiot. And I was like, I don't think so. Like, I think that makes sense that it's flat and it's close to the water still. Like, yeah. It's like, no, bro, if it's fucking hot. I was like, I don't know. I'm drunk. I don't know. We were at Cody's house for Cody's birthday. So I was drunk. I was like, I literally don't know.
I don't know, bro. I don't even know.
They were all drunk when I got there. So I should just believe myself.
No, it's like the reason it doesn't get humid on the east side of the state is because there's that giant ass fucking mountain range
Right.
that the humidity and stuff can't get behind.
Dry, hot as balls.
Yeah, dude. Ugh, nar.
Yeah.
Nar. And we have the solid mountain range on the west coast, a couple of them, right? But they all essentially stem from Alaska all the way down to
Right.
the fucking Mexico.
This splits it pretty good.
Yeah. And so you get definitely different climates out that way. But the minute you get down south like that, yeah, you got this whole Gulf Coast thing that probably
Gulf Stream, El Nino. I don't know.
Weatherman talk.
Just don't have meteorology terms now. Okay. Let's hit another one of these things. Unless you have anything else you want to say about student loans.
Nah.
Okay.
No. I get the sentiment. Bad law, bad all the things. The most cursory constitutional glance would have been like, you can't do this.
Yeah, you shouldn't have been doing
It should
that.
surprise nobody.
No. So let's talk about the free speech one, right?
Yeah, this was the
web designer.
web
Yes.
designer who didn't want to
So-
design a wedding website for a homosexual couple.
Yeah, and this in the same state as the baker and challenging the same type of law. And the way the Breaking Points was explaining is this is kind of like test. It's a test case just to see kind of how far it goes. You
It's
know?
probably run by the same activist group that ran the train on the first one.
Yeah, and I don't know that much about it, but the Supreme Court upheld this woman's right to not have to make websites for gay weddings if she doesn't want to. I would have to. It wasn't under the same pretext as the Bacon case because that one had to do with religious freedom because the council that fucked that guy over didn't respect his religious freedoms.
Yeah.
So that one was on the religious side. I believe this one has more to do with the artistic freedom aspect of the First Amendment.
Yes. I remember Shapiro talking about that when this case first was coming up to the Supreme Court.
Yes. The court on June 30th dealt a blow to LGBT rights by ruling that the constitutional right to free speech allows certain businesses to refuse to provide services for same-sex weddings despite state anti-discrimination law. The Constitution's First Amendment allows an evangelical Christian web designer who objects on religious grounds to gay marriage to refuse to provide services for same-sex weddings, it found.
So let me just say this right off the bat.
It's interesting they didn't
You do not have a right to anyone else's labor.
Right.
Period. That's how that goes. I don't care if you can call it whatever type of rights that you think you have. You do not have the right to anybody else's labor. Period. Full stop. End of fucking story. Case closed. Right? I think the court actually kind of dug themselves a deeper hole at this point because they did curtail it in this artistic freedom type of, language, that was the argument being made to the court. So, it is what it is. But at the end of the day, the actual concept here is, does somebody have a right to someone else's labor? Yes or no? And the court here found no, even in this particular artistic case, you don't have the right to their labor. You can't force somebody to do a job for you because they offer that service. You just can't force people to work for you. That's just not the way any of this thing goes at all. That is the most fundamental right of freedom and choice. I mean, any kind of First Amendment type based argument can be had at this point. And it surprises me that it goes all the way up to the Supreme Court, to be perfectly honest, but this is just what we do these days. So that's, in its full reading, that's essentially, to me, what it boils down to is, sorry, you don't have a right to someone else's labor. That sucks.
Yeah.
Find someone else.
Can I ask you a couple of steel men from the left a little bit?
Do
Because they're
it.
very upset about,
LGBTQ
it's
rights.
rolling back people's rights and everything. So,
Rolling back rights, baby.
so let me ask you this, right? I'm from the left and you're a fascist.
I'm a fascist.
Is it really a free market if not everybody is free to partake in it? Meaning they can't shop everywhere, right? I can't go and get things anywhere that I want. So is it really a free market?
Yeah. Because then you have the freedom to go somewhere else. I mean, it's that simple. If those people are bigots, then
Don't shop at their business.
You're talking about a fucking online store.
Right.
An online website, bro.
You could make your own.
You could certainly do that. There's 1.5 million ways for you to get this same service anywhere else, literally in the world. No. There is a free market solution to this, and it's called go to somebody that doesn't hate you. It's the same argument we have with fucking Bud Light and all this shit. Don't give money to companies that hate you.
Yeah.
It applies the same here. Every company has the right to refuse service to anyone. Correct? That's kind of how that no shirt, no shoes, no service. If I don't like the looks of you, I can tell you get out of my store. I can charge you with trespass.
In
I
Washington,
don't want
you can
here.
fire anybody for any reason at any time.
Indeed.
You just don't have to tell them why.
Yes, and don't tell them why.
Yeah.
Otherwise, you will go to court.
Definitely don't tell them.
Don't tell them why.
Definitely don't tell them it's because they're gay.
Yeah, that's not good.
No. No, you won't win that case.
That's straight to jail. Which I would also argue for them too. I mean, that was fucked up. That fires you because you're gay. Are you good at your job? Yeah. Well, then fuck them. Close down their business. They're a fucking bigot. But anyways. I thought I was the right argument. Sorry, I went a little lefty on this one. But no, there's 100% a free market solution for this, so go do it.
Yeah.
That's it. You can't force somebody to work for you if they don't want to.
Okay.
And why would you want to? If they don't like you because you're gay, don't give them your money.
That's always been a big point for me. I sympathize with people who feel as though they're being discriminated, or maybe they are, right?
And I want to make sure I do too.
Certainly.
That's fucked up that's happening. But we should make that known on social media, on the Yelp reviews, all this shit. These people wouldn't do it just because I'm gay. And then the free market can handle that situation, and only bigoted fucking homophobes will go there.
And I'm certain there are instances in which the free market is limited. Like there's only one person in your town who provides a particular service, and they happen to be a fucking bigot. But I don't have a solution currently for those particular things. Because I also don't agree with legislating based off of minor instances of things. Of
Individual instances,
and a very minute, a very small.
Population?
No, just a very low frequency of them happening.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
if it doesn't
Yeah,
happen very often, we shouldn't be making a nationwide law to fix this thing that
Although
only
we-
happens a few times a year.
And
You know?
although we love to do that these days.
Yes. But that's always been a thing for me is why would you want to give this person money if they're telling you that they don't like you?
Yeah,
Why
fuck
would you
them.
want to do that? And especially on a more personal level of like a small business. This person's looking you in the face. When you're buying Bud Light, it's different. You're buying shit from a grocery store.
Yeah.
You don't ever see anybody who works for Bud Light, even the truck drivers.
Yeah.
That dude just drives a truck. He has nothing to do with the company other
He just
than
works at a distributor.
precisely
making money,
to accost
feeding the family.
to accost that guy would make 0 sense at all. So that's what I don't get is why would you want to give this person money, you know? And that's where I think where you start to, especially in the baking case, you know, those people were like looking for someone who didn't like them so that they could cause a fucking fuss.
Oh yeah. I mean, it's the same thing happens with like the abortion argument and stuff
Yeah.
too. I mean, there's always most of these cases are very well thought out and pointed because they want to try to create a legal precedent somewhere.
Yeah.
There's no difference, but
So I got another one for you. Is it a violation of someone's rights to refuse to provide a good or service to them?
no, not at all. You could do that just because they're an asshole. And I would argue that you probably should do that because
Yeah.
they're an asshole. If somebody comes into your business and is giving you a hard time because maybe you're overbooked, maybe you need to expand and you haven't been able to do that yet and you don't want to take on extra work, you can just refuse them because you don't like the way they walked into your store. That you don't need a justification to discriminate against anything or anybody.
Right.
If you don't want to do something, it's your freedom to not do that. And if you're that person, again, that is coming in there and wanting a good or service and being refused to that, that's, again, feel bad for you. That's fucked up. Should not happen. That person's probably a piece of shit for doing that. There might be extenuating circumstances that may make them not a piece of shit, but at the end of the day, you have no rights to their labor. If they don't want to
Right.
provide a service for you, okay, that's fine. It's America. We can figure it out. Again, gets more complicated if you're in a super tiny town with only one type of situation like that. But I would like to see how many cases that's happening on, especially in a local community, a small community like that.
Yeah.
Odds are people are generally going to be thinking very, very similar anyways, because that's kind of how those things go. If you didn't like growing up in this small town fucking America, you're going to take whatever chance you can to get out and go somewhere else to go live your life. We have the freedom to move around this country. It's very, very simple in the broadest terms. There's no red tape you have to go through. There's no legal bullshit. You can just literally pick up and go somewhere. People do that all the
Right.
fucking time, right? It's not that simple, but it's
Yeah.
very complicated, but it's literally that simple.
And I don't like the idea of someone having to leave a town because people don't like them, you know, like because they can't receive services there because people don't like a certain way of life.
Yeah.
The same deal. I just have a difficult time with setting nationwide standards when the people in the country, they're just so different, you know. I would much rather it be dealt on a local level where the people in the town who aren't pieces of shit are like, hey, you can't fucking do that here.
Yeah.
And if you want to run your business like that, then you get the fuck out. But
Yeah.
this person has a right to be an individual and to live here and be happy and be able to access services to live their life forward.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't like, you've got a whole town full of bigots. I don't really want to tell you, you know?
It's like Jim Crow stuff, right?
Yeah.
It's the same type of thing. It's like, yeah, once the laws were passed that said you can't do this anymore, you can't segregate, you can't do all this, didn't change the attitude of the fucking people that live there.
Right.
Until, of course, they got a sweet-ass football team and then Roll Tide, you know? But we both watched that special last night.
Just watched it. Roll Tide.
Roll Tide.
Roll damn Tide. That shit's so funny.
It was, yeah. But morally, wrong.
Yeah.
Legally, you can't set the precedent like that. Mind you, again, there are obvious circumstances where, yeah, if you got a whole town full of bigots that don't want to do that shit, I don't necessarily know exactly how you solve for X in that situation, but I do know the wrong answer is a state or federal legislation that prevents it everywhere and then hamstrings people from making the common everyday forms of discrimination that everybody does as they go out through their daily lives. We've all been taught to learn that discrimination is a bad thing, but then you realize that you discriminate every single day, multiple times a day
Right.
throughout your entire life. So you can't be writing law about non-discrimination when everybody discriminates every day. If the basis of your discrimination is, I'm playing the lefty here, right? Or no, I'm playing the right. I can't use I'm not going to use your language and say if it's hateful. But, if you're being a dick, I mean, I feel like everybody should know that, and you should get pushback on it, and you should not be a dick anymore. I don't know what you do if there's an entire town of racists that are refusing to serve you because you're black.
Right.
That's a really tough issue, and we have discrimination laws that speak. At one point, I think, did the right job.
Just burn it down.
Just
don't burn the town down.
Don't do it. But
no, and I tend to believe that, and maybe this is idealistic. I will grant that.
Mm-hmm.
I tend to believe, because I truly, so gay, truly in my heart, I believe in freedom, and I believe in liberty, and I believe that if you give people ultimate freedom, they will stand up for the freedom of other people, even if they don't like them, because they themselves appreciate the freedom that they have, and they believe that everyone should be able to have that.
Yes.
And even if you have a bunch of people who fucking hate black people, they're like, I don't like you, but I want to be free, and you should. That's the same demeanor in which I do this show. I defend people's right to do shit that I don't agree with at all, because I want to be left alone. I don't want other people telling me what to do, so I'm not going to tell you what to do or defend anybody else telling you what you should do.
Yeah.
And
see, this is the problem, though, right? Because you said before that that's an ideological argument.
it might be
But
idealistic.
it's an idealistic, but it's
like hopeful,
yeah, okay. But I will say that that's the nature of the problem to begin with, right? The problem is that there's not enough people out there that have a true understanding of what freedom and liberty is and how important it is, and that if they truly did, I guarantee you they'd be willing to stand up for shit like that. Unearned discrimination or something like that. I don't know how you would classify it, but I guarantee you if everybody truly felt that in their heart and actually lived and breathed that American spirit of freedom and liberty, they would definitely be, you'd have the whole rest of the town more or less would be lined up behind you and say, motherfucker, you better do this shit, because or the town helps you out, and your friends and family or whatever helps you out to get that service or good in another way to solve that instantaneous problem. But at the end of the day, I think it's an ideological problem. The reason all this stuff stems up is because there are so many people that'll just look the other way and be like, well, that fucking sucks. I might agree with you at home, but I'm not going to go defend you out in public. If you had more people that actually believe that, none of this shit would be a problem.
And I think we have evidence of that in the past, and this, I don't even care. There were people in this country that owned slaves and changed their minds, realized they were fucking wrong.
Yep.
They're like, holy Jesus Christ, I've owned people my entire life. This is wrong. They had moments in life. There were people who went with the system and maybe shouldn't have been doing that. The moment they felt like they could, they freed all their slaves. People who were dead. John Adams, right? He freed all the slaves that he could when he died. Whether or not he should have done it before, that's a history contextual argument that we can have till the end of time. He freed all the slaves. George Washington, same deal. When he died, I don't think John Adams never owned slaves. George Washington, when George Washington died, he freed all the slaves that he could, but half of them belonged to his wife. So he could only free so many of them. It's the same deal. Like, again, we could argue all fucking day about whether they should own people to begin with. No, they shouldn't have. Obviously, they shouldn't have been doing that. But
you can't make the argument at the time.
No, but there is something to be said for them realizing the value of freedom and seeing, even if I feel differently, I feel whatever, you are a human being and you should have this. I'm willing to go against what the societal norm is, even at the time of the revolution where people were still cool with that.
Oh, yeah.
George Washington's like, no, you guys do your thing. It's still horrible.
I'm out.
That's like so minimalistic of it.
Right.
But
because that's the way he put it, right?
Right. But there is evidence of that. There is context and there is precedent for that.
And it's the reason, the reason those types of things happened. Revolutionary time would be a little bit different because everything was so brand new. But like you look at the text of the original Constitution and Declaration of Independence, they set the country down a path that led us to where we are now.
Right.
It was going to happen one way or the other.
A lot of evidence at the time, like, we just don't want to deal with this right now.
Yeah, we can't deal with it right now because it's unsustainable. We can't just do this. Could probably make an argument for a lot of, like, evaporating the entirety of the federal government. We could definitely do that.
Right.
Unfortunately, the Constitution itself says it needs to exist, which is why I'm not a huge fan, but it's a good fallback for anything else. But there's a reason that we go down these paths, is because it may take us a long time to wake up to certain things, but ultimately, when you truly embody those ideals of freedom and liberty that were set forth in primarily Declaration of Independence, right? And then later on in the amendments in the Constitution. But, like, there's a reason we're at where we're at now, and the reason why, like, Martin Luther King Jr. became so powerful and led, the civil rights movement and got, everybody's pushing the ball a little bit further down the field. It's never... Vivek Ramaswamy just had an interview on The Breakfast Club, which I suggest nobody listen to because it's a terrible show, but he was on there talking with Charlemagne the God.
I do not like C the God.
No. But he essentially was making that argument kind of towards systemic racism and stuff like that. It's always an endeavor to move towards a more perfect union. It always has been, and it always will be. There's always going to be divides. We're always going to disagree with each other on something or another, and the best we can do is try to do a little better every day, push the ball further down the field, and maybe that the end zone. I forget football terms all of a sudden. Maybe the end zone never is something you can actually reach, which I would probably argue is probably a good thing, because then you're always striving to do better. You never reach the goal, but you're always trying to reach the goal. And that's exactly what I think that kind of the discrimination laws that we have enacted over the decades have all been trying to gear towards that. And sometimes to move forward, you do have to get rid of some of those laws. And in this case, I think is one of those things. Like the Civil Rights Act, we've expanded at this point instead of curtail back. The idea, the perfect world, you set down the Civil Rights Act, you make sure that legally nobody can discriminate against race, and then you live your life, you run your businesses, you run your schools and everything just based off of people as individuals. And then eventually everybody kind of gets past this whole idea of different races being better or worse than others, and then you all just judge each other on the individual basis, and then ideally you get rid of that Civil Rights Act because your society no longer is plagued by that issue. Right. You're never going to get rid of all cases. There's always going to be cases, but Supreme Court says this in particular case of discrimination has backing in one way or the other. And so we're not going to legislate on this. We're not going to rule that this person is forced to do this job. And I think that's a sign of good things, more or less.
Yeah.
It's a bad issue. This person, assuming the argument was natural and correct and there wasn't some kind of nefarious, we need to make precedent, so we're going to go cause a problem for this business type of thing. Assuming that's not the case, this is just one instance of religious discrimination at that point that's technically covered under the Constitution and is fine.
Right.
And so that just kind of shows you that we respect people's religious freedom, we respect people's artistic freedom, and we also recognize at the same time that you probably got a little wronged here, but also there's other ways for you to solve this problem. We don't need to force somebody to do this job. But I don't know.
No, I think you're right. I think that no, and it's funny that you talk about Martin Luther King. He has a quote, and I knew that I wasn't sure who it was, so I looked it up, and it is him. Mm-hmm. That's, I guess, doesn't matter, paraphrasing of somebody else, but the quote from Martin Luther King is, "The arc of moral universe is long, but it bends towards justice." Yeah. And that's what you're talking about.
The dude
it's just
said a lot of good shit.
Progressive steps forward to so I have one more thing to talk about this, and then I think we should move on because we've been doing this for a long time.
Indeed. We haven't even got to part 3 yet.
I know. So Josh Keaton asked me about this. I never responded to him because I've been thinking about it for a long time. And I don't remember what it was in response to, but seeing polls lately about like the national acceptance of gay marriage has been going down. right?
Okay.
Have you seen the same,
I've
heard the same type of thing?
I've seen
Okay.
the same thing.
I have not looked into it. I don't know whether or not that's true. Let's, for the time being, operate under the assumption that that's correct.
Okay.
Right, for the sake of conversation.
Got it.
So when I get asked about this, I'm no longer left. This is general discussion now.
Okay.
When I hear about this, I tend to think two things that are not necessarily mutually exclusive, right? The first thing that I think is, one of the things I think, because it's not the first, is kind of on a base political thing. People are super fucking sick of all of this woke ass messaging, and even if they don't believe this, they're just pushing back. They're like, I just don't want any of this around me at all.
Yes.
So that's one thing that I think. The other thing that I think is there's some liars afoot. And I think there are some liars afoot when gay marriage first happened, and I think there are some liars afoot now. I think there are some people when gay marriage first passed that didn't want to look like an asshole in front of their family, and they're like, yeah, I'm down for gay marriage, but they weren't really. And I think those people are maybe being more honest now, and I think to the same tilt, there are some people who really are in favor of gay people getting married because it doesn't matter to them, but because of one reason or another are so upset about how hot all of this LGBTQ stuff is that they're like, I don't want anything around me. I'm done with this. If it's going to start with this, because that's kind of the argument that a lot of people at Daily Wire are making, is like, where we're at now with LGBT started with gay marriage.
It's a slippery slope argument from decades ago.
Right. And if you're hearing that, then your response could be, then I just don't want them to be getting married if this is what it turns into. You know, whether that's right or wrong, that could very much be where you're operating. So I think there are a lot of people who, in their heart, don't really have an issue with gay marriage, but are
Sick of the things
And
all
are-
the whole inundation.
Yes.
It's like a immersion therapy.
and are believing that a step back from gay marriage rights could help them return to the normalcy that they're seeking. So that's kind of what I tend to believe. I don't, because I know, and it's small case, but I don't see a lot of people who are upset about gay people being married. Like this stuff at the Daily Wire that I'm hearing is even pretty new. You know,
That's because
they
it's-
shouldn't even have been
yeah.
married. Because even a few years ago, Ben Shapiro was like, I don't think you should be doing it under law, but I also don't think the law should have anything to do with this. And this is a different argument that he's not necessarily different, but it's a different tune kind of that he's singing now than it was before, of we shouldn't be allowing this to be legal because of X, Y, and Z, other than the government shouldn't be involved in this.
Yeah, he's off the leash now.
Yeah.
He can do whatever he wants and say whatever he wants because they're as powerful as they are. And unfortunately, I think a lot of that sentiment, we'll just call it like anti-gay sentiment, stems from like this. I think it's a pendulum swing. This is what we're seeing. I think this is what it is. I think it's a lot of things. There's a lot of factors to it, I would imagine. I would certainly grant that whoever are taking polls and participating in polls, this might be a reality. And in the general public, I think a lot of people are just like, quit shoving your thing in my face.
Yeah.
I don't care about what you do. And if you keep shoving it in my face any longer, I'm going to push back because fuck you. That's why. I didn't care what you were doing with your own private life, but now that you're trying to continually force it upon me to
Right.
bow down and bend the knee and, you know, preach from the mountaintop your thing, I'm not going to do that. And in fact, I'm going to step back a little bit.
Yeah.
I could see that being definitely these days. I could see that being a reality, especially in like conservative Twitter.
Right.
There's so many younger people now that are getting politically active at a very young age,
I wrote about this month.
and there's a lot of kind of religious revival even in a non-specific way, like a very generalized like Christian revival. We'll
Not
put it that way,
necessarily
you
a
know.
bad thing.
Not necessarily a bad thing, but also they tend to be very, very against gay marriage, which is a weird thing, right? Because the arguments for gay marriage and against gay marriage are so flawed from the get up, depending on which angle you're coming from. It's either a religious angle or it's a legal angle, right? And the legal angle, I don't think the government obviously should not be involved in marriage in any accord. There should be, you know, people talk about like hospital visitation rights and this, that, and the other thing. So you have to get married so that you can be allowed to go see your dying loved one, just, you know, that kind of thing. Which that just illustrates too much government involvement. But from the social level, I could see some pushback, mostly just from the constant forced acceptance of whatever. When it's like men's rights, too, the whole fucking red pill manosphere type of thing, same type of situation.
It's just too much.
It's all too much. You're all looking for more. I need everyone in the world to accept me and my thing.
Yeah.
I don't care about you and your thing. I will care about you and your thing on an individual level. If you're one of my friends, I care about you. I care about your struggles and what you do in life and how you're treated and this, that, and the other thing. And you should not be forced to be, be treated lesser than just because who you're attracted to. Literally give two shits about any of that stuff. I think part of that might be to the generalized broadening of the quote unquote community of, LGBTQIA plus 2S,
yeah.
Canada got a whole new acronym they threw out. I don't even know what's going on up there, but the minute you're making a bigger and bigger umbrella for all these different things, and certain microcosms within that broader umbrella are taking the floor, and they're bringing in the rest of the overall umbrella community with them along their ideological journey and their path towards more rights and all that shit, particularly at this point coming from the T's of the world. That's being pushed pretty heavily by that particular group. And then in turn, you've seen the rise of gays against groomers and all these other various groups that are like, bro, we're gay, we're lesbians, we're all here to do our own thing, and we're not a part of you guys. I don't know what this whole thing is, but I think that's probably part of it too, is that the broad umbrella of all the things are being pushed by a very, very small percentage of people that are pushing and then claiming that the rest of the quote unquote community is in favor of all these things, which I just hate this whole broadened, it's a very leftist term at this point, this community, that community, the POC community and this, that, and the other thing. You're removing everybody's individual merit at that point. You're removing people as individuals from that. I don't think Dave Rubin is down with anything pushed by the broader LGBTQ community.
Right.
He's not really into that whole situation at all, other than the fact that I should be able to be married to who I want. And if I want to adopt kids with my husband, then I should be able to do that too. And he does. And he lives his life out that way. And then he argues every day against the more broader, whatever else is going on over there. So that, I guarantee you, is an aspect that the umbrella is just too big at this point, and they're just seeing so much more forced acceptance being forced on everybody that they push back against that. Even if they don't fundamentally disagree with anybody's right to marry whoever they want, this ideology has gotten too big, and it is starting to touch things that I'm not comfortable with, so I'm going to push back on the entirety of the movement. That seems like a pretty reasonable thing for somebody to deal with these days.
And it's almost, as you're talking, because I think the pendulum thing is really good. Let me address Deborah's thing really quick, and then I thought granting of domestic partnership to carry that on the legal stuff, domestic partnership or civil union, super small percentage, but extremely loud. So you're right, but then I think they ran into the separate but equal issue that that's precisely how we got to the gay marriage thing, is that there's granting separate but equal things, and we already have dealt with that in the past. And this is precisely why my take is that the government should have nothing to do with this. If two people want to be together, then they should be together. They should have nothing to do with this, because we're getting into fucking splitting hairs now of giving them the same, all the same legal protections with a different fucking name. So what's the fucking difference then? There is no difference. It makes no effective difference. We're calling it something different to make a certain group of people feel good, and that's dumb. We shouldn't be legislating that way off of feelings.
Yeah.
So
and every culture is going to have a different definition of what marriage is, anyways. Some of it's religious, some of it's cultural, some of it's just societal.
So the pendulum thing, I think, is really good, and I'm trying to envision something else, because it's almost like two pendulums swinging at each other, because the umbrella thing is swinging so hard and people are pushing so hard against it. So I wrote this month, it started about this protest thing that happened at Klahowya. I haven't read any articles about this. It was all off of this thing that Jordan showed me, right? Supposedly a protest at Klahowya where 100 kids were sent to school, went to school, whatever. I'm not trying to apply any type of coercion into this, because I don't know what the particular instance is.
Okay. So they went to the school
wearing T-shirts that they go to the school, but so they went to school that day wearing T-shirts that said there are only two genders. And this is to protest all this like pride stuff that's happening in Oklahoma. Someone else like ripped out a pride flag. There's all this stuff that's happening there. People are very upset, right? So then, and these kids were sponsored by a group called Moms for Liberty.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
So then this LGBTQ organization wrote an email supposedly quoting the Southern Poverty Law Center about how Moms for Liberty are extremists and these people are akin to the KKK and like all this type of stuff. The kids, right, are akin to the KKK. So I equated this thing because it grew into a much larger piece about children being involved in politics. But this particular event of children being sent to school wearing T-shirts that say there are only two genders, which is the tip of a spear of an issue that the parents probably have no fucking idea about it, but like the roots and stuff like that was my issue really with the kids being sent there. It's like, you guys have no idea what you're really fighting against and you're doing this service, but it's the same thing as the videos that you're seeing from whatever pride parades where they're saying, we're here, we're queer, we're going for your kids, or we're coming for your kids, right? Then they're like, we've been doing this for years. This is, neither of these things is helpful. You guys are all being assholes and you're doing things that you're saying you don't really mean, that you're just trying to get to whatever happiness or core cohesion, whatever. That you're, it's so harsh. It's just too much. It's all too much on both sides. It's all too much. Like, you shouldn't be doing this. I told you, I went to Pride probably close to 10 times. I never heard anybody say that. I never heard a single person chant, we're here, we're queer, we're coming for your kids. Not one time. That was over a decade ago. So you're saying you've been doing this for years. I've never heard that before. I went there years in a row. Never heard that. Never felt unsafe. Never had anybody made me feel unsafe. Nothing. Why is it different now? What's going on? Something is different. Something different is going on.
Yeah.
Because it is different. Because I went there and I experienced it myself. And what I'm seeing now is not what I used to see. And I don't understand. So these arguments of it's always been like this. It's not. Because I saw it. It has not always been this way.
No.
Has there always been naked people at Pride? Yes. Yes,
Word.
definitely.
That has happened.
I also know the second year I went there was a group called Dykes on Bikes who's been around for a super long time, a bunch of lesbians who ride motorcycles. They stopped doing their shirtless ride because there were more kids, because they felt like it was inappropriate. That's a real thing that happened. That actually happened. You can, I'm sure, look up an article about it. They felt like it was inappropriate. They started wearing shirts instead of going topless on their bicycles or on their motorcycles. Something is fucking different. Something is going on here. And when I was in school, we weren't talking with their like transsexuals existed, people transitioning existed. We weren't talking about 90 fucking genders, all this shit. Like, something is definitely different. And we weren't upset about it either. We weren't fucking complaining about what other people want to do. Like, on both sides, something is fucking different. And the only thing I can believe is they're reacting to each other. And it's too much. It's like, you guys are
you're making
pushing each other to the further extremes, which is weird to watch.
Yeah. And it's, and I can understand why that happens.
I never seen tits at the White House till this year. You know what I'm saying? I never saw tits at the White House till this year.
Especially,
I don't care whose tits they were. I never saw tits at the White House no matter what. That's weird, dude.
That is super
JFK
weird.
fucked Marilyn Monroe. I never saw tits at the White House. That's weird. I don't care whose boobs they were. That's weird.
It's super
I don't
weird.
care if it was fucking Lauren Boebert. That's weird. This is a weird thing that happened at the White House, and no one can deny that. I don't care what anybody's saying about equality or anything. That's weird.
Yep.
Something has fucking changed.
It was so weird that the minute they got pushed back, they said that person's not allowed to come back anymore.
But this is weird.
We saw it.
Yes.
And
I'm not saying you guys are weirdos. This is weird. Like, this behavior is fucking odd.
It is the two ideological extremes pushing back against each other in hopes to move the Overton window one way or the other. I think that's really what's happening. It's because the vast majority of people kind of just don't want to partake in any of this shit. They really don't care what people do, generally speaking. They just want to be left alone.
Yes.
They don't even really give a fuck about who's in charge of their lives, right?
Yes.
That's kind of the way most people operate. But the minute the extremes come right to your face,
They get hot.
why everybody had such a powerful response to Charlottesville or Jan 6. I mean, all these different things. But it's no different right or left. I mean, these two warring extremist factions continue to stand out in social media and in the corporate press because that's kind of what they're meant to do at this point. And then ideally, they capture enough of the everyday person's attention to shift the Overton window, what's acceptable in society and what's not, one way or the other. You know, you have the right now saying, you know, being very, very anti-gay marriage, for example, right? You have the furthest extremes on that side, very religious, very anti-anything homosexual, or, you know, whatever else comes with that under the giant umbrella these days.
And we all used to say those guys were assholes.
Yes. And ideally, we all still should.
Right.
On both sides, you know? Like,
I'm just saying, like, we weren't clamoring onto it. You're talking about these youth that are, like, grabbing onto it. Like, we weren't doing that. That
Yeah.
wasn't even the religious kids that we went to school with.
And that-
weren't fucking assholes like that.
No, and I think that's probably more a product of the parents, that type of thing. The adults are getting so much more activated, and then kids are used as pawns in these political games.
This is the claim I fucking made in my article this month. You've got to read it. This is the fucking.
I will read
this
it.
is the claim that I made. This is why I was like, this is why I'm uncomfortable with this. This is not good.
No, man. Get anything politically or ideologically, whenever you're trying to push any kind of message or change anywhere, you need to try to, like, leave the kids out of it.
Yes.
Just because they're not, it never looks good when presidents bring kids up during their fucking State of the Union to make a fucking point. Nobody likes it when you're using children to make a point. When you're getting a group together.
This guy was born as a crack baby 6 years ago, and now he goes to an upper city school in New York. It's incredible.
Hey, man, Joe Biden says, never mind, I'm not going to say that. It's terrible. It's so bad what he says. I don't even want to repeat it. That's how terrible he is.
Poor kids or white kids.
Yeah.
That's all.
Poor kids are just as good as white kids. It's like, oh, Jesus, Joe. Your segregation era is showing, buddy. But yeah, I can't disagree with you at all. I think using kids as political pawns is bad. There are definitely certain issues that affect kids, obviously. But then again, like when I was growing up, and I don't know when you were growing up, but we didn't do ideological months at schools.
No.
We didn't do any of that stuff.
No.
As a greater society, we didn't do ideological months anyways.
No, we did Black History Month, but that's like...
It was just a thing.
That's become very ideological. It was not at
It
the
wasn't
time.
at the time.
It was... Nothing really was different in school. There was like decorations and shit that went up, posters and things, but
Like we did specialized reports and stuff like that.
I
you
think
know,
we
that
probably had
was
an
a
assembly or
thing.
something, but we always had like a Martin Luther King Day assembly, like always shit like that. But it was not vastly different,
And today I don't even recognize it. Man.
Yeah, the school experience was still relatively the same during Black History Month.
Yeah. I mean, there's another reason for pushback on one side or the other is once you start indoctrinating people in one way or the other, nobody ever likes indoctrination.
Right.
Man. I don't care what kind of indoctrination you're getting, whether it's like a religious indoctrination or a more ideological one from there. Nobody likes that at all. Everybody wants to feel like they have as much control over their families' lives as they can possibly get. And if you're removing that, you're going to get pushback.
Yes.
It doesn't matter who's doing it. Nobody wants your kids to be indoctrinated into blind nationalism.
Right.
To be taught that, anybody that disagrees with what the government does is now a violent domestic extremist. Nobody wants that to be taught to their kids, I mean, we topple governments we disagree with, for God's sakes,
no
okay?
one with morals. If that's where you're at, you're a weird fucking federalist.
Yeah, but I think the
Or
most
statist.
simple
That's some weird shit.
explanation to what we initially started with is the pendulums are swinging at each other, and they're just pushing each other farther left and farther right.
What do you call the balls that are hanging on the strings? You drop them and they run into
I
each
don't
other.
know, but those are
It's
super
like
dope.
a Newton's cradle or some shit like
Something
that.
like that.
Yeah, it's like that. The harder you swing that thing, the harder the other one's going to clang back.
I used to love those things when I was a kid.
It's like that.
It's like that, bro. Life is just a Newton swing.
That might be what it's called.
It sounds right. Newton's cradle or something. Sounds about right. Newtonian physics are at work. I mean, let's be realistic here. Not that I can really tell you what Newtonian physics are. It just
God damn it,
sounds
I'm a
smart.
genius.
Newton's cradle?
It's called Newton's cradle.
Nice. Good for you.
Okay, with that, we have to be done with this
We
fucking
have to.
segment. We're going to be here till 10 o'clock tonight.
It's 4:30.
Yes.
Oh, Jesus.
Yes.
All
we
right.
have to be done.
Let's kick it.
Yeah, so we'll be back in just a few minutes for part 3 of episode 151. It's been brought to you by Zeke, just like all of the other clips and parts and episodes from here on out.
That's right.
You can find all of our stuff at saltofthestreets.com, including our own personal social media. I'm at Salt of the Street on Twitter and at alpaca_Donovan on Instagram, and Colin is at Big Bird Offie on both of those things. Patreon.com/saltofthestreets. Go there, subscribe. We'll be back in just a few minutes. Part 3. Thank you guys very much.
Peace.
Welcome to the salt of the streets, coming at you every week with this food for thought. Hope you ready to eat everything.